Recapping on your top stories, immigrant rights advocates have filed a lawsuit seeking to stop the U.S. President Donald Trump's administration, who from next week intend to end the legal protections that allows nearly 1,100 Somalis to live and work in the United States. For any news stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us at +27 11 714 4459. Channel Africa News, I'm Onelen Tsinsi.
SABC News. The African Perspective. On the Move with Benjamin and Palesa every weekday on Channel Africa, The African Perspective.
Here you are connected to Africa and the world right here on Channel Africa, the international voice of the South African Broadcasting Corporation. Remember, we are everywhere where you can find us, almost everywhere, but the main places are channelafrica.co.za. Remember, we're also on our Channel Africa mobile app and also on the SABC Plus app. DSTV and OpenView on the audio bouquets there. You can find us. Don't forget our social media platforms at Channel Africa 1. And also join us on that YouTube live stream right now. You can use that handle at Channel Africa 1 there. And also our Facebook page. We've got so much that's coming up from the show today. We're going to start off looking at universities. What creates inclusive environments in universities? That should be an intriguing conversation there. Because sometimes you feel like you get into that part of education. You feel like, I'm doing this on my own, but can universities create that inclusive environment? And this is my favorite topic for the day, our In the Cubicle feature. We unpack pivoting. How do you make a strategic career move, and what should inform that particular decision? And then we wrap things up in our Money Matters feature as we look at practical tips for managing your money and making your travel dreams come true without breaking the bank.
It's going to be a good 3 hours. Do join us on our various social media platforms, and don't forget you can engage us on our WhatsApp line +27 83 288 6684. This is On the Move.
Get set and be ready to go. On the Move with Palesa and Benjamin Moshatama.
I found the joy through all the pain, I found the sun through all the rain, I found the power, a brand new day, I found the power, a brand new day, and I'm awakened, who I could be through the thick and thin. I'm singing my song and I'm finding my way again. When it was lost, I held my heart out of the dark, I found the power, a brand new day, I found the power, a brand new day, There is a love I only know, I found the strength to let her go, I found the power, as you can see, them no believe, girl you can forward, come there with me, living lavishly.
right, 9 minutes past 9 o'clock Central African time. That is Mama Africa. I think she's allowed to share that with Miriam Makeba, that title. That's Angelique Akijo with one titled Joy. And there she features Davido. She's got an upcoming album this year, so I'm looking forward to that one, featuring Pharrell and all sorts of wonderful collaborations on that one. We're going to be speaking universities after the break.
Africa Update on Channel Africa with Lulu Kabu.
Malawi's President Peter Mutharika has directed that a fresh inquiry be conducted into the plane crash that claimed the life of the former Vice President Saulos Klaus, political analyst Undule Mwakasangula. Undule, what are they politically and institutional factors that may have influenced President Peter Mutharika's decision to order a fresh inquiry into the crash?
Let me start by saying that the death of the former president and 8 others was a painful national tragedy. You know, public trust is very important. If people feel that the first report left gaps, the president may believe that a fresh inquiry could restore confidence and provide closure. So the decision by the president may be influenced by public pressure, but also the need to rebuild trust in the state institutions.
Africa Update with Lulu Kabu, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time. Palesa and Benjamin, fuel your day with fresh African perspective on Channel Africa.
All right, 11 minutes past 9 o'clock Central African time. There's a very interesting article that came out. Actually, it's a conversation that came out on Daily Maverick. And it's about Abadoon Oyaniran in the University of Lagos, who's actually going around and trying to empower blind students by advocating for improved accessibility and is vying for changing policies. And says, okay, do we have that enough going on the African continent, a diverse and inclusive environment in our campuses and universities? While many African universities have made commitments to inclusion, gaps still remain in practice. In some cases, infrastructure is the main issue. We're always talking about infrastructure here on Channel Africa, and also learning materials and campus systems. They're not really fully designed to support students, especially those with disabilities. We look at what true inclusion on campus should look like and where universities can improve on this one. Well, we are joined by Hanif Kruger, who's a blind assistive technology specialist and disability rights advocate. Hanif, welcome on the show.
Good morning, Benjamin. Hope you're doing well.
I'm doing very well. I'd like to know a little bit more about you. What's a blind assistive technology assistant?
So I specialize in assistive technology, so that would be basically the devices, hardware, software solutions that would assist a person to function optimally, depending on what it is that they want to accomplish. And this is from the initial stage of assessment, needs analysis, right up to after the fact, after purchase, servicing, and so on. But I used to, I basically was involved in policies. Universal design is one of the things I always push for. So what you're talking about is right up my alley. But yeah, that's basically what I do. I try and assist people in my personal capacity as well as professional capacity, whenever I can, wherever I can, however I can.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Such a good thing to be doing, man. And if let's talk a little bit about the story that we're reading in the Daily Maverick around Abiodun Oyaniran. Interesting, because when you read his story, it's really about someone who is got a disability, and when they are around their university, that's when they see, this is a bit of a challenge. This is very much a struggle. And when they get into that, that's when they start advocating. And that's what's happening in most systems when it comes to people with disabilities, is that it's only when they get into those environments where they have to then advocate for themselves.
Yeah. So, Benjamin, I'm going to, take it a bit further and say it's not just the environment. It's not just the infrastructure. It's also attitudinal.
Okay.
Because the biggest challenge for anybody with any sort of challenge at universities is not just a disability, but it's the environment and then that attitude. So when campuses and learning materials and digital systems are designed without accessibility in mind, then students spend their energy to try and overcome these barriers instead of actually focusing on the material that they're supposed to be looking at and dealing with. The biggest challenge here is, from a blindness perspective, would be obviously navigation. Many of these places were not designed with people with disabilities in mind, whether it's wheelchair or blind. So lecture halls may not have tactile signs, pathways may not have indicators, building can be difficult to navigate, how big some of these campuses can be. So just navigating to a class could be absolutely terrifying for a person that's totally blind, doesn't have friends, doesn't know anybody. When they plan their campuses without accessibility in mind, then they have to rely on other people. And we can extend this concept to learning material as well. Because if a document is not accessible, then it doesn't only affect the blind person, but it affects other people as well. It could affect technology down the line as well. But if a blind person takes a document, okay, you my lecturer, I'm coming to you, I'm saying, Benjamin, I need this, you're giving me a scanned copy of something. Mm-hmm. Other students can open the document and start learning immediately. They can absorb what they're seeing with immediacy. I have to now go and ask Palesa, Sis Palesa, please, can you help me? And maybe she'll say, I don't know what to do, but I can read this for you. And now I record it, and she makes a mistake, she gets tired, and we have an argument, and then basically I'm struggling still to absorb this information, while other students are already done with absorbing this information. Yeah. So true inclusion, this is so, for me, it comes from up the policies. When they procure items, when they procure these platforms, it should be built into the contractual agreements, into the purchase orders. It should be built into policy right from the outset. Because if accessibility becomes a catchphrase with every semester, that means the student will only do as well as they are able to speak for themselves. So if they're not able to advocate for themselves, they are shy, they're new, it means they just get left behind.
We obviously think of universities as learning environments, Hanif. And when we think about persons with disabilities, we think the only challenges they have are infrastructural. So ramps for those who are in wheelchairs and, some of the things you mentioned for those with the blind and, many other infrastructure issues. But the truth is this really does have huge challenges on their ability to learn as well. Connect those dots for us, please, because many might not understand how a ramp could affect your studies if you are a university student.
Well, it's obviously just an example that you're giving, because it's absolutely anything. It could be a lecturer who decides that he's not going to make a PDF accessible, or even a publisher who says, well, we don't care. You paid 500 Rand for this book, you have it, we don't care whether you can access it or not, it's your problem. But it affects a person on a social level, that they might feel that, I've been at this place for 2 years and I'm not making it, I'm not doing well, I'm not making friends. And I'm going to touch on that also in a moment. But it affects them because they feel they cannot meaningfully contribute to the university, to society itself, because they were not able to make it. And people do make it sometimes. But I'm going to say this, and I know I'm going to rock the boat sometimes, in this case. But sometimes people make it. In many cases, they are privileged. They have wealth behind them. Maybe they have somebody who sponsored them. And so they are lucky. They might be financially capable of doing these things, to go to university, to have somebody walk with them, take them from class to class. But everybody do not have that. And Africa, if you look at a Pan-African perspective, I want to also say this. We should not only wait for infrastructure. If we show kindness to other people, just attitudinal, there are people that I know that has done so well for themselves, not despite the universities, despite the inaccessibility. Yeah. That's why I'm saying attitude is such a big differentiating factor that we have to keep in mind.
Well, Hanif, we're going to take a bit of a break and then we'll come back to those attitudes that need to be changed. It seems like you're putting that fact forward here beyond the idea of even infrastructure, as much as infrastructure is a challenge. How do we change the way of seeing people with disabilities? How do we become inclusive in even our communities in these universities? We'll unpack that after the break. We're speaking to Hanif Kruger, who is a blind assistive technology assistant and disability rights advocate. What's your take on this conversation we're having today? People with disabilities and education, do you think we do enough to accommodate them? Our WhatsApp number is +27 83 288 6684. It's 20 minutes past 9 o'clock Central African time. Stay with us right here on Channel Africa.
Using Scholar Transport comes with responsibilities. Every learner has a role to play in keeping themselves, their friends, and the driver safe. Stay seated and behave responsibly. Avoid shouting, pushing, standing, or moving around inside the vehicle at any time. Think safety first. Remember that safety starts before the journey begins and continues until you are safely off the road. Good behavior saves lives. Your actions matter. Issued by the National Department of Transport.
Hi there. Do you want to elevate your business and give it a voice in South Africa and Africa as a whole? Well, in that case, let Channel Africa make this a possibility. Channel Africa is willing to advertise your business for as little as 30,000 rands or $1,719.18. To get access to these great rates, send all requests to mukwenata@SABC. That's MOKOENATA@SABC. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Benjamin Moshatama and Palesa on the move.
We're having this important conversation this morning with Hanif Kruger, blind assistive technology specialist and disability rights activist, speaking about accessibility in universities for persons living with disabilities. It's a great space for learning and growing. However, if you live with a disability and not enough accessibility, both physical and sometimes even learning accessibilities made possible for you, it could really hurt your studies quite immensely. And if let's speak about that, the attitudes of people. I think I've driven around a number of campuses throughout my life, and in some campuses I do see, implementations of accessibility in the physical form, like a blind person's crossing, but the cars never stop; they just keep on moving. And so it's not just the university's problem; it's about the community and the environment. Do people actually know how to be part of that inclusion and accessibility within the community of a campus?
I'm going to try and answer this by saying this, that not only universities, but many places they're trying hard. And in the cases of universities, disability support officers, they try to, they work very hard. But the problem is that disability is still treated as an individual accommodation instead of a systemic responsibility. So this means that people with disabilities sometimes have to repeatedly request for accessible materials or adjustments for each course every time, every semester. And that can become exhausting because students end up spending time advocating instead of focusing on their studies. So it should be built systems from the beginning, procurement policies, digital platforms, and teaching practices, rather than being added on later as an afterthought. Now, where I'm going to answer your question here, Palesa, is if we talk about societal responsibility, let kids mix with one another from a young age. Preschool. Let them mix, let them introduce, let them meet different groups of disabilities. Let the special schools stop being special and just run around and interact, play sports, do wrestling, play giant tennis or whatever it is, do things, talk to one another. And also within our cultures, we have to acknowledge there is a lot of issues around disability, a lot of stigmatism and so on. We need to embrace that also and try and deal with that so people don't have to be scared of disability. I once did a presentation. I won't say the name of the company. It's one of the parastatals, though. It was quite funny. And the guy said, I used to see you, Mr. Kruger, on the Gautrain, but every time I saw you, I went and got in another carriage because I thought I'll also become blind. And we laughed, but he was a manager. And that's, he really thought that this was the case. And disability, I'm going to say this, it can happen to anybody. I met people, 27 years old, one morning she wakes up, I'm blind. Or 13 years old, one morning wakes up, I cannot see that well anymore. So it can happen to us any time of the day or night that we can acquire this disability in whichever way, accidental, hereditary, whatever the case is. And we, at all of us, at some point in our lives, we have a disability. Sometimes maybe you lose a loved one. Mentally, you become overwhelmed. Maybe you broke your arm or your leg. Something happened. So we all need accommodation, and we need to implement that Ubuntu. People love to talk about Ubuntu, but I think if we implement these things in globally, locally in Africa, South Africa, I think we will actually resolve many of these problems.
Yeah. I'm going back to this article of this Daily Maverick radio workshop story that kind of led us to speak about this. It's on Abiodun Oyaniran, who is at the University of Lagos. And what happened here with this blind student is that they even started advocating within that university and started what they call Children of Selflessness, a group that helps blind students take exams by reading questions aloud and submitting even their papers. The small little things that we can do as community members, or even as part of a cohort, whether it's in a school, whether it's in a business environment, or even just within a religious community, to be of assistance. At times we don't know how to be of assistance. What I've been self-critical on sometimes, when I see someone who has a disability, I don't want to engage too much, because I don't want to assume that they don't know how to do the things that I assume they don't know to do, right? So then I just switch off and just carry on with my life and just okay, they're fine. But maybe that's also part of the problem, is that we have those separate worlds between the abled and the disabled, and we never try to understand one another. How do we engage more? How do we participate more in each other's lives?
I think it's because of fear. And what I said earlier on, suggesting that schools, churches, people just reach out, like what we're doing right now. This is one of the things. Maybe we should talk more often. I've actually heard you, by the way, on I think on one of the other radio stations before, Benjamin. So I know your voice. But
sure,
I think it's just taking that first step, overcoming that fear of otherness, and that fear of initial contact. I get what you're saying. Sometimes I walk past people and they speak Chinese and I ignore them because I think they might not be able to speak English, but then actually they can speak English, but I assumed that they couldn't. So it's just about reaching out, moving out of your comfort zone, and then saying, hey, are you okay? Do you need help? And you're going to find people who might be offended. So, leave me alone. I can do it myself. But then not everybody is the same. People might appreciate that you're reaching out to them and say, hey, do you need any help? My name is Benjamin, and so forth and so on. So that's, I think, just reaching out and taking that first step. If I may, though, Benjamin, I know other people might be listening, and I think it's important, if we have some time, just to touch on a few steps that the universities can take.
Okay,
I
go
think
for
just
it.
to be practical.
Sure.
So I think, first of all, they need to ensure that digital learning platforms and course materials are compatible with screen readers and other assistive technologies. So if they implement universal design, no problem. And these systems are there. That is the sad fact. They are accessible systems, but many times universities and companies will use the most inaccessible system, or a system, just the first system that they like. Then the second thing is to provide basic accessibility training to lecturers so they know how to create accessible documents and presentations. It's really easy. It's simple. There's tons of material, free, online, and obviously they can also find people who do training and who actually can help them to implement this properly. The next one is to include accessibility requirements in documentation when universities purchase new technology or digital systems. So this will future-proof the university, not only for blindness, but for any other sort of, maybe you want to be able to extract a text and you might want to put it, input into a storage system or something. So if it's an image form, it's not always ideal because you cannot really search as well as opposed to using text. But then the final thing, most importantly, is to involve students with disabilities and students without disabilities. Let them interact with one another, get organizations involved who are specialists, and let them be involved right from the outset. Because at the end of the day, accessibility should never, ever depend on how much a student is willing to fight for it. It should already be built into the system.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more, Hanif. Thank you so much for your time. I think that's a great way to wrap it up. Where can we go to find you?
Well, they can always just email me. Very simple email address is mail@hanif.co. And if they want to WhatsApp me, I only do text and only voice on appointment, 061 229 4455.
Thank you so much. That's Hanif Kruger, blind assistive technology specialist and disability rights advocate. What a pleasure to speak to you. Really important conversation there, speaking about accessibility for persons with disabilities in universities across the continent. That's 9:30 Central Africa time. Let's get our latest sports update.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
It's a very good morning from the sports desk. I am Musibu Dimakura with your latest sports news at the Sawa. Sri Lanka have appointed former South Africa as well as India coach Gary Kirsten on a 2-year deal following Sanath Jayasuriya's resignation. This after the team's early exit from the T20 World Cup. So Kirsten, who guided India to the 2011 World Cup title, will begin his tenure officially on the 15th of April as part of a wider revamp of Sri Lanka's high performance centre. Sanath, one of the country's greatest cricketers, will remain involved as a director of the centre, overseeing player development. Sri Lanka co-hosted the recent T20 World Cup but failed to progress beyond the Super 8s, sealing their exit with a defeat to the Black Caps of New Zealand. Back on the continent now, CAF President Dr. Patrice Motsepe has announced a $2 million increase in the prize money for the winner of the CAF Champions League, as well as a further $2 million increase for the winner of the CAF Confederation Cup. So the winner of the CAF Champions League will receive $6 million, a 50% increase, while the victor in the CAF Confederation Cup will walk away with a $4 million, which is a 100% increase. And the 5 years Dr. Patrice Motsepe's leadership of CAF, the prize money for the winner of the CAF Champions League increased from $2.5 to $6 million, while the prize money for the CAF Confederation Cup increased from $1.2 million to $4 million. The latest increases take the overall prize money and payments to African clubs to over $42 million per season, an increase of 123.4% since Motsepe took charge of the federation. Further field now, Neymar will miss Santos' Brazilian championship match against Mirassol today with the lingering muscle fatigue, dealing a huge blow to the forward's hopes of forcing his way back into the Brazilian men's football squad ahead of the FIFA World Cup. Santos said Neymar's absence was precautionary, but the timing is awkward, with Brazil coach Carlo Ancelotti having organized a trip from Rio de Janeiro to Sao Paulo to watch the 34-year-old in action. Now, sources linked to the Brazilian Football Federation as well as the national team's technical committee says Neymar's omission for today's match was met with surprise and frustration from the federation as well as Ancelotti, who had hoped to assess the number 10 up close and personal. Ancelotti has made it clear that only players that are fully fit will be selected for the Brazilian national team squad for the upcoming friendly matches against France as well as Croatia. Those matches are taking place on the 26th of March as well as the 31st of March. On to tennis news now. Novak Djokovic clawed out a 6-4, 1-6, 6-4 victory over 72nd ranked American Alexander Kovacevic on Monday to reach the fourth round at Indian Wells for the first time since 2017. Djokovic, playing his first tournament since falling to Carlos Alcaraz in the final of the Australian Open, had all he could handle from the 27-year-old New Yorker, who peppered the Serbian superstar with 16 aces. Djokovic made an early break stand up to take the first set, but the American had found his groove and rolled through the second set against a clearly frustrated Djokovic. Djokovic then regrouped in the third and final set, finally finding the break that he needed in that final game. This is what he had to say post that match.
It was really anybody's game till the last game of the match, where he gave me some looks on the second serve and I used it. I anticipated well in one of the, I think it was 30-all or deuce, and kind of defended well and stayed patient and waited for his first error on the backhand and the last point. So overall, again, another physical battle, but obviously against an opponent that was playing on a high level. So I'm glad to overcome it. Can I play better? Yes. I'm very self-critical, but I'm just glad to win 2 matches in a row in Indian Wells.
Still on tennis news, Britain's Emma Raducanu meanwhile says she must be more aggressive if she is to compete with the world's best players after suffering a heavy defeat at Indian Wells. The 2021 US Open champion was beaten 6-1 and 6-1 in just 52 minutes by American 6th seed Amanda Anisimova, who raced into the fourth round. Raducanu admitted the golf and power and short weight left her feeling a little bit behind, and also stressed she needs to mix her game up and rediscover her natural style. Having recently enlisted Mark Patchy as a temporary coach, Raducanu insists that she's now focused on building momentum despite the setback, pointing to positives from her earlier win over Anastasia Zakharova in the earlier rounds of this year's tournament. It brings the time to 9:56 a.m. Central African time, and that's a wrap from the sports desk at the Sawa. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, do send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11714 4459. I'm back with more sports news in the next hour. For Channel Africa Sport, I am Mosibudi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Ritmos e cultura. Com Jacob Tivani.
Meus ouvintes do Ritmos e Cultura, hoje em linha com uma das grandezas da música moçambicana, porque não? Ele que é um dos kings da marrabenta, uma bermuda in the building.
É um prazer enorme estar a fazer parte deste programa. Deixe-me só saudar. Boa tarde a todos os ouvintes que me ouvem neste preciso momento. Meu nome é Bermuda, de Alau Fanelo Estarapo, Gajo Aguda Canhela é Mabiscato. Eu vou saudar de uma maneira diferente. Ah, tita buia mwanango, tiduma tifika giane. Ah, tita buia mwanango, tiduma tifika giane. Ani motivelwa baba yena otiva mina haikonama. Ani motivelwa nona yena otiva wahimbo. Cá estou eu, irmão, para conversarmos, para falarmos um pouco de tudo. Estou aqui, estou aberto. Eu estou muito feliz porque é a primeira vez que eu falo nesta rádio, falo para os ouvintes, então estou muito feliz.
Ritmos e cultura com Jacob Tivani. Todos os domingos, das 20 às 21 horas.
As Africa renews, so does its voices. 60 years of Channel Africa.
Well, thank you so much, Musibudi, for that update. Now it's time for our business news.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thank you, Benjamin. Good morning. Money laundering and the financing of terrorism remain pressing concerns in the Southern African Development Community region, SADC, prompting member states to step up their efforts. Central banks have responded by forging bilateral and multilateral agreements aimed at enhancing regional financial integration, payment systems and monetary stability. In a recent development, the Bank of Namibia and the South African Reserve Bank signed a revised memorandum of understanding to strengthen institutional cooperation. Spokesperson for the South African Reserve Bank, Yolanda Vacha, elaborates on the MOUs and bilateral agreements with various central banks in the SADC region.
And so the MOUs are then entered into bilaterally with various central banks in the region, depending on the need as well as, the topics of interest at the time. So some MOUs that we have with central banks would be about 10 years old. Some would be maybe even older than that. And from time to time, we then look at the MOUs and we update the agreements based on emerging topics such as, payments, anti-money laundering, as well as, resolution.
South African lender Absa Group posted a 12.25% rise in full-year headline earnings as credit impairments declined and the corporate and investment banking and Africa regions units reported growth. The country's third biggest lender by assets posted headline earnings of $1.51 billion in the year ended on December the 31st. Pre-provision profit increased 4%. Absa, as that revenue grew by 5%, supported by strong non-interest income growth and a moderate net interest income performance, despite modest retail loan growth and margin compression. The Motor Industry Staff Association, MISA, has expressed concern over the latest motor vehicle recalls, saying that the frequent incidents are deeply concerning. This follows Volkswagen South Africa's recall of over 25,700 VW Polo vehicles sold between February 2025 and February this year to correct handbrake fittings. Last year, VW recalled more than 250 Polo sedan vehicles due to an incorrectly fitted seatbelt on the driver's side. MISA spokesperson is Phakamile Hlubi-Majola.
MISA is deeply concerned about the sharp increase in vehicle recalls in recent years. While we understand the complex factors driving these recalls, we cannot ignore the impact they have on consumer confidence and, importantly, on the credibility of dealerships and sales executives. These workers, who are at the front lines of customer engagement, bear the brunt of consumer frustration despite having no control over the manufacturing processes or the components that lead to recalls.
The Egyptian Petroleum Ministry says the country has raised prices on a wide range of fuel products. This as the region continues to reel from rising global oil and gas prices and the disruption of Middle East output from the U.S.-Israeli war on Iran. The decision comes days after Egyptian Prime Minister Moshatama said in a press conference earlier this month that the state might resort to measures if global fuel prices rise significantly because of the war. U.S. President Donald Trump and his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin have spoken telephonically on the fighting in Iran and Ukraine. President Putin urged diplomatic solution to the situation in Iran. Trump said the fighting on Iran is almost over, a comment that saw the price of oil drop by over 10% to below $90 a barrel. Sherwin Bryce Peace reports.
While the Israeli-US war with Iran is very much still ongoing, the positive sentiment from President Trump on the trajectory of the conflict buoyed markets and saw a massive retreat in the oil price that had reached $119 a barrel earlier, providing global economic unease at the broader implications of the conflict. Trump told CBS News that Iran no longer had a navy, no air force and no communications, that their missiles were down to a scatter, and that their drone manufacturing had been impeded by the US attacks. Iranian officials have indicated that they are ready for a long, drawn-out war, and argued that the conflict would only end due to economic pressure being exerted on the United States.
$1 in Nigeria is 1,000 naira 394, Botswana 13 pula 44, Kenya 128 shilling 31, Zambia 19 kwacha 208. BRICS countries: $1 in Brazil 5 real 24, Russia 78 rubles 79, India 92 rupee 14, China 6 yuan 91, South Africa, 16 rand 65 cents. $1 is 75 pence to the British pound and 86 to the euro. Commodities, gold is at $5,176, platinum at $2,197 per ounce, and the price of Brent crude oil at $93.08 a barrel. For any stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or you can call us on +27 117144459. For Channel Africa Business, I am Chanduko Ligege.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Late night with African stories that matter. Tsepiso Makwetla on Africa World Hour.
I mean, we're seeing South Africa face challenges in the enforcement of an NHI plan. The Minister of Health is contending with legal action. There might be a will, but there would be opposition. And what is most important is the issue of equitable health services. How do we make sure that those policies translate into that?
Let me just give you a real example. In 1926, Japan started to discuss about primary healthcare and universal health coverage. By 1961, Japan was fully with universal health coverage. Do you know how long they live? They've got the longest lifespan in the world. So it's not theory anymore. In any country during COVID, if you remember 4 years ago, which fared well, there are those countries which had a very strong primary healthcare system. Because when we say health sovereignty, it's not about closing the doors to the partners. No, this is a process. But we need to give where our priorities, what can we do more with less?
Regional Director for Africa, Professor Mohammed Jaffe.
Late night with Tsepiso Makwetla. End your day inspired by Africa World Hour on Channel Africa, the African perspective. The rhythm of Africa, the pulse of the continent. This is Channel Africa, the African perspective.
What you gonna give to me today? Cause you're not feeling good, all about you. And what you gonna give to me today? Cause you had a bad day. Well, so did I. So did I, baby. Well, so did I. So did I, baby. Tonight, we're gonna talk about feelings. Tonight, we're gonna talk about all the things that I've always wanted tonight. You're gonna be making up for all the times when I needed you and you were not there. You were not there, yeah.
Hey, one of the highlights of On the Move is definitely having Zonke in our studios and just hang out with her. She's so super fly and just easy to chat with. That one is titled Feelings. I saw on her social media that she's readying herself to actually release an album with Anthony Hamilton. That should be very, very yummy. Well, it's 49 minutes past 9 o'clock Central African time. We've been speaking about inclusivity when it comes to people with disabilities at universities. Do you think that that's a big consideration that we do and we have in African universities? Let us know. +27 832 88 6684. Let's take a break. We'll be back.
9 to 12 midday Central African time. On the Move with Palesa and Benjamin Moshatama.
The safety and well-being of learners is a shared social responsibility. Parents and guardians play a critical role in ensuring safe, reliable, and lawful scholar transport. Parents are therefore urged to take responsibility for the following. Before entering into any scholar transport arrangement, parents must satisfy themselves that the operator uses vehicles with valid roadworthy certificates and operating licenses, and that the driver holds a valid professional driving permit, PDP. By working together, parents, operators, and authorities can protect learners and build a culture of safety on our roads. Issued by the National Department of Transport.
Tune in and turn up the volume. This is Channel Africa.
Timpahla takho ushiye dami watuthathe konke kwakho ushiye kwami thatha nalo thando lwakho ushiye lwami ungende ngathi awubona ungiphula inhliziyo uthe uyangithanda kanti unemanga uthanda labanye watshela bakithi utongishada kanti unemanga udlala ngami uyindoda lenjani lenemanga kunini udlala ngami ungende ngathi awubona ungiphula inhliziyo ungende ngathi awubona ungiphula inhliziyo lobuhlungu lobo uyaboyiswa ngubani ungende ngathi awubona ungende ngathi awubona ungiphula inhliziyo ungende ngathi awubona yeah wena ungende ngathi awubona ungiphula inhliziyo udlala ngami inyabethithami yosuwa ngubani lobo
Yo, so many tears in that one. That's Zama with one titled Dinyembe. 54 minutes past 9 o'clock Central African time. We're speaking about inclusion in universities, African universities to be specific. Are we doing enough? That's the question I'm asking you this hour. I'd love to hear from you on our WhatsApp number, +27 83288 6684. I'll tell you one thing for sure. We live in a world that is so obsessed with sameness. Like, we just are always building societies based on one same common ground. It's kind of like the easiest way to hang out with people or to find friends or go to a church or actually believe in a cause. You want to do that because it's so easier and more comfortable to build a society based on that sameness. But the truth is, the world has a lot of differences. There's a lot of things that where you look at every individual, there's no thing that links us that looks uniquely the same. You know, everything in life is unique. Everyone is unique. Every situation is unique. And that's what we do when it comes to building institutions. We build them on the premise that everyone will be able to climb the stairs. Everyone will be able to get the same resource in the same book format, right? Because we just never think that our societies have a status of difference.
Yeah. And actually so much more heartbreaking in university institutions because these are places where researchers live pretty much.
Yeah, they should know these things.
Yeah, they should know these things, right? They're researchers in those campuses. They're, advocates. They're all sorts of people who should know that we are not the same. They're literally specialists in those campuses. But even in that particular environment, there's still a lot of exclusion. I mean, lecturers continuously excluding persons with disabilities, even when they know they have persons living with disabilities in their classes, because it's not like they appear out of nowhere. They've been there all semester, like all the other students, and they constantly have to beg you to include them in the learning environment. And that's kind of bizarre in a situation like a university campus.
Yeah, but I also think we must understand that sometimes these institutions and their buildings, especially of the African continent, they are from a colonial design, and we have never really upgraded some of these institutions. And even if we have, they're very hard to redesign to actually include those with disabilities or those of a different cultural makeup, right? So they're very Western buildings indeed. So I wonder if we are fashioning the new African reality in a way that involves all of us. Simply not, because we've inherited a lot of things that don't even reflect our societies.
Yeah, a new African reality with old infrastructure in an old environment doesn't sound like it's connecting. And it obviously isn't, because persons with disabilities continue to find those campuses harsh environments that don't really help them with the challenges of learning within those institutions. What do you think about this one? I think it's something, it seems like it's obvious, right? Yeah, they should make it more accessible. But how? But when? With what money? Where's the infrastructure? And are they willing to do it? Because the willingness, I think, is the most important part. Even when there might be a little bit of money for something, it's not going towards the inclusivity of persons with disabilities on campus. It's going to whatever they deem is important within that learning environment. And that importance excludes quite a number of people that also deserve to learn like everybody else. So let us know what you think about that one. There are great comment sections in our live streams. We are live on Facebook. That handle is Channel Africa, and we're live on our YouTube page at Channel Africa 1. Easy, accessible comment section there that we can engage in and chat literally immediately. So go over there. We'd love to have you and engage further.
All right, we're moving into our In the Cubicle conversation that's coming up. We'll be chatting about pivoting in your career. Is it something that you've done? Let us know how you've pivoted from maybe one thing that's dramatically different to where you started in your career. Let us know on our WhatsApp number as well with that question, +2783 288 6684. We'd love to hear from you, and we'll be speaking to a guest on that one, Yasmin Daroka, who is a career change coach, joining us all the way from the UK. Well, we're moving into that second hour. Let's get the latest news.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Benjamin. Looking at your top stories, the U.S. seeks to resume flying aircrafts and drones over Mali, and conflict-related sexual violence in the DRC remains widespread. Your latest news. Greetings to our listeners. The U.S. is nearing a deal with Mali that will allow Washington to resume flying aircrafts and drones over the West African country's airspace to gather intelligence on jihadist groups linked to Al-Qaeda. Last month, Washington made the first move to implement the agreement by lifting sanctions targeting the defense minister and other senior officials who it said had ties with Russian mercenaries. This had been a key request by Mali's government. The U.S. hopes this will lead Mali to grant the U.S. permission to fly intelligence gathering missions over the country's vast terrain, where jihadists have been gaining ground. South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa has requested to be given until the 16th of this month to submit his written replies to questions by the members of the ad hoc committee looking into concerns around national security. The committee had previously sent a list of written questions to Ramaphosa dealing with wide-ranging allegations of criminal infiltration, corruption and political interference in the justice system of the country. The allegations were made by the KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner, Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, during a media briefing in July last year. The committee was deliberating on the list of witnesses that are still scheduled to appear. Chairperson of the committee, Soviet Lekhanyane, explains.
Councillor to the President, Honorable Gweranhoff, has written to us to request that the office of the President be given until the 16th of March to respond to the questions that members of Parliament have submitted to, or members of the committee have submitted to the office.
Meanwhile, South Africa's ministers from basic education and higher education will answer oral questions in the National Council of Provinces today. This is as President Cyril Ramaphosa and various members of his executive will take part in oral question sessions this week. Ministers in the social cluster, including health, social development and human settlements, will be in the hot seat tomorrow. Ramaphosa will field questions about issues including the full implementation of the National Health Insurance and why he decided to keep the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry's interim report confidential. The United Nations mission in the Democratic Republic of Congo, MONUSCO, says conflict-related sexual violence remains widespread, particularly in the eastern provinces of North and South Kivu. A new report by the UN Joint Human Rights Office has documented hundreds of cases last year, affecting more than 1,500 victims, most of them women and girls. The associate professor at the Royal Danish Defence College and Extraordinary Association professor at Stellenbosch University, Thomas Mandrup, explains.
The focus has, amongst other things, been on trying to prevent sexual violence, and especially sexual violence against children and protecting children and child soldiers and stuff like that. Due to the conflict with the M23 and the government forces, the Vasalendo and other militias, this work has been severely damaged by war, and it's unfortunately a pattern we see in especially in the DRC, but also in other conflicts, that the civilian population suffers when conflict happens and when there's conflict situations, but also that sexual violence used as a tool of war.
Ghana has called on the Commonwealth to condemn Friday's missile attack on its United Nations peacekeepers in southern Lebanon, which injured 4 of its soldiers. Speaking at the Commonwealth meeting at the weekend, the Foreign Minister Samuel Okutsedzo Ablakwa did not say who was responsible, but said the bombing was an attack on every principle that the UN Charter exists to defend. Israel has been striking Hezbollah targets in Lebanon after the Iranian-backed Shia group said it launched rockets and drones at the Israeli city of Haifa last week to avenge the killing of Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Khamenei. Recapping on your top stories, the U.S. is nearing a deal with Mali that will allow Washington to resume flying aircrafts and drones over the West African country's airspace and to gather intelligence on the jihadist groups linked to Al-Qaeda. For any news stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us at +27 11 714 4459. Channel Africa News, I'm Onele Ntsintsi.
SABC News. The African Perspective. On the Move with Benjamin and Palesa every weekday on Channel Africa, The African Perspective.
We are in the second hour of On the Move here on Channel Africa. Stay connected to Africa and the world with Channel Africa, the international voice of the South African Broadcasting Corporation. Watch or listen anytime, anywhere at channelafrica.co.za, on the Channel Africa mobile app and on SABC Plus or via the DSTV and OpenView audio bouquets. You can also catch us on our social media at Channel Africa on Facebook, where we continue to stream live, of course, and at Channel Africa 1 on all our other platforms. YouTube is another great way to stream us live right now. Channel Africa first with the African story globally. We're going into In the Cubicle. That's the feature where we speak all things work. And I know the term pivoting has been quite a big buzzword this year. And I mean last year and over the past couple of years actually. But how do you know if it's the right time to pivot or hold your ground? That's the conversation we're going into in a bit.
We'll be speaking to a career change coach joining us from the United Kingdom, Yasmin. We'll be spotting the difference between emotional, decision, calculated choices, assessing whether dissatisfaction comes with the role, or maybe we are exploring practical steps to prepare for a career pivot. Not an easy one, bit of a challenge, but we'll see how to deal with that one after this break.
Send you my home address. Now your love can heal my stress. Till the end of time. Will you stay by my side, girl? I need you in my lifeline. Let me hold you so tight. I gon' make you my wife, girl. I gon' make you my wife, girl. Give it to me, mama. You drive me crazy, la la. Inani fite tala. Anye mungane woku chara. Give it to me, mama. You drive me crazy, la la. Inani fite tala. Anye mungane woku chara. Baby, no more pretending. I just wanna see you bendy. Baby, no more pretending. I just wanna see you bendy. Baby, no more pretending. I just wanna see you bendy. Baby, no more pretending. I just wanna see you bendy. Come closer, oh my baby, wingora, nuriranza guhoza, pendufa mendoza, gayo bari rancho koza ukanyemeza, jenda gachutango tosa uranoza, inana sinaeza, imifungo jenda pesa. Give it to me, mama, you drive me crazy, la la. Inani fite tala, anye mungane woku chara. Give it to me, mama. You drive me crazy, la la. Inani fite tala. Anye mungane woku chara. Baby, no more pretending. I just wanna see you bendy. Baby, no more pretending. I just wanna see you bendy. Baby, no more pretending. I just wanna see you bendy. Baby, no more pretending. I just wanna see you bendy. Baby, don't keep me waiting. Nafata naga konji. Find some time to the twembi. To the twembi, yeah. Minera gushiduka. Zinere gukanguka. Nizo shaka kwibuka. Nizo shaka kwibuka. Give it to me, mama. You drive me crazy, la.
Hey, that's a fun one. Alik Bulan there from the Seychelles, featuring Vexa Prince with one title, The Bendies, the remix on that one. We're coming back with our In the Cubicle feature. We're speaking a little bit on, a whole lot on, rather, pivoting in your career. That means just changing careers. Does it mean that you do a completely wipe out to say, I don't want anything to do with where I come from, I want something completely different? And if you do that, how do you approach that? Or do you think about the nuances within your own career journey and find something that accommodates your career past or history? We'll find out a little bit more after the break.
The voice of the continent, now online, with all your sports fixtures, lifestyle, and more.
The whole population of Africa has been shocked to the depth of its soul.
For 60 years, Channel Africa has been the voice that connects the continent, telling our stories and sharing our vision with the world. This year, we mark 6 decades of broadcast excellence.
60 years of stories, sound, and connection.
6 years of African conversations that matter.
This is 60 years of broadcast excellence.
Broadcast excellence, rooted in Africa's heartbeat and looking boldly into the future. Join Channel Africa as we celebrate 60 years of broadcasting. Still strong, still vibrant, and still giving you the African perspective.
Channel Africa.
Download the SABC app and take Channel Africa with you everywhere you go.
Pivot this, pivot that, pivot the other. It's been quite a big buzzword over the past couple of years with, technology, getting bigger and a lot of people having remote work. People have been considering to pivot altogether when it comes to their careers. The excitement of thinking about a new job or career move can be thrilling, but not every opportunity is the right one. So how do we know? How do we know when it's truly time to pivot or when it's better to hold your ground? Helping us answer this question is Yasmin Samson Derocha, career change coach, joining us from the UK and of course live streaming on our various social media platforms. Yasmin, thank you so much for your time. Good morning.
You are so welcome. Lovely to be here.
Lovely to have you. Well, it has been a huge buzzword. That's because I think the world of careers has changed quite a lot in the past couple of years, and pivoting has become maybe an easier opportunity for many out there, has it?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that since COVID, especially, there's just been a huge change in how people want to show up at work. I think COVID, there was obviously loads that was horrific about COVID, but what it did show is that actually people can do so much of their work and integrate it with their life as well. And they don't need to be spending, 10 hours a week commuting, and they don't need to be in the office for every single thing. So I think it's caused a real reevaluation of careers for everyone. And I think that was happening beforehand, especially for women, and especially for women post motherhood. There was this sense of, okay, my priorities have shifted, but what do I do with that? I've worked so hard for the last 15, maybe 20 years to get to where I am, and now that no longer fulfills me. So what the hell do I do next?
Let's go back a little bit and just describe what pivoting is, because we assume we all know, but I feel like maybe at times we go a little bit too far with the description of pivoting. What is pivoting, especially your career?
Yeah, so I think what some people identify it as is like burning your entire career down to the ground and starting from scratch. And it's kind of like, that's it, I'm off. I'm going to go sit in a hut in the woods and, build a fire. And I'll explain why that kind of like that narrative is there. But what pivot really is taking all of your skills and your experience and your expertise that you've built to date and using that to step into something new. So this narrative that I constantly hear is I'm going to be starting from scratch. And you're absolutely not starting from scratch. You are building upon what you've already got into a new space.
Yeah.
And the reality is that most spaces you are not starting from unless you are literally going into a field that is so drastic, so drastically different from where you are now. Even then, I can probably tell you that you've got some kind of like in that means that you're not starting from scratch in that field.
Yeah. It's great, though, to see that people are finding the courage to pivot. I think in the previous generation, we've seen people stay in the same job that frustrates them for all their lives until they, retire. But now that doesn't have to be so. You can actually, look at other avenues and ways to pursue that. But I came across your recent Instagram post where you shared some thoughtful insights on strategic career changes, particularly your perspective on when not to make a move. And that can be a little tough for people to hear that, right? That, well, I do want to pivot so bad. Why can't I make that move? What are the circumstances that would say, yeah, maybe not right now?
Yeah, I think it's important to say that the reason that, before I kind of go on to that bit, but the reason that there is no incentive to stay at an organization for 10, 20 years now, like our parents used to, is because I don't know what it's like in South Africa, but definitely in the UK, the pension doesn't pay out anywhere near as well. You used to get, whatever your final salary was as your pension. That doesn't happen anymore. That was a massive incentive to stay in an organization. The cost of living's gone up massively and the pay doesn't reflect that. So the only way to match your pay is to bounce around, is to move around. So there is no incentive to stay loyal to an organization anymore. So there's kind of like societal factors that massively impact how someone is in their career. In terms of like when not to move, it's not saying do not change career. It's more around do it on your own terms and be in control when you do it. Because a lot of the times people get to a point where they're so burnt out, so exhausted. It might be that there's things going on at home. It might be that they're in a really toxic workplace and they're just like, right, that's it. I'm off. And actually that's handing a lot of power over to other people. And if they make the move without knowing some critical things, all they're going to do is repeat the same cycle in a different organization. So that Instagram post that you're referring to, there were 3 key things. One of them was knowing what the real problem is in your workplace at the moment. Because a lot of people come to me and say, everything's wrong. It's all rubbish. I hate it. It's everything.
Yeah.
And I go, I get why you feel that way because right now you're in it. But I want you to apply a bit of a forensic lens. What's really the issue? Is it the leadership? Is it the lack of growth? Is it the commute? Is it the salary? And it might be a combination of those things, but you will be able to pinpoint 3 or 4 things where you're like, this really goes against my values in terms of how I want to work and what's really important to me. Yeah. An example of where I've left work. Sorry, you go.
No, you go. It was a fantastic segue. Go ahead.
An example of when I've left has been, one of my deep values and what I really care about at work is growth. If I feel like I'm not learning, if I feel like I'm not developing, then I will become the worst version of myself. I'll be so bored. I will, even like the simplest task will just take me forever to do because I'm not cerebrally motivated to do it. In the same way, another one of my values is being able to show up with integrity. So if I feel like I can't do that in an organization, I start to not feel like myself and not feel like I can be the leader that I want to be. So that's kind of like the big one. Like, understand what it is what's going on right now in terms of what's really causing the issue. The second is to understand what you want, because most people at the time of the career pivot it's because their priorities have changed, their needs have changed from what they want from work. It might be that they have been working up the career ladder, and what's really motivated them has been getting to the next salary band or getting to the next job title, which there is nothing wrong with that. But most people, when they get to the point of career pivot, it's because they're like, well, those things are great, but they no longer actually give me the fulfillment that I want in my career. I want something different. And so it's really understanding, well, what do you want? Most people don't ask themselves that. Like, we're taught from the age of school just to chase, the next thing, get your grades, get your first job, and then work your way up the career ladder. No, we're not ever really taught to go, what's really important to me?
Yeah,
What do I really care about? What energizes me? What gives me joy? What allows me to show up as the best version of myself? And how do I want to show up, not just for at work, but also how do I want to show up for my family? Who's the person I want to be when I go home?
Okay.
That is really important because there's collateral damage.
Yeah, it's mean we need to take a bit of a break. Yeah, I love that. But some of those things that you've highlighted feel like a luxury, like what do I want? Because at the end of the day, it's like I need to get my bills paid, right? But also you spoke earlier on around, the emotional connection there. We have such a big emo response to what happens in work. And sometimes that's leads us to kind of move into this area where we're making emotional decisions to pivot when we don't have to be as dramatic. We'll assess the difference between an emotional career change and a strategic one, but we'll do it after the break.
Channel Africa and you have got something in common. The thirst for knowledge. Hi there. Do you want to elevate your business and give it a voice in South Africa and Africa as a whole? Well, in that case, let Channel Africa make this a possibility. Channel Africa is willing to advertise your business for as little as 30,000 rands or $1,719.18. To get access to these great rates, send all requests to mukwenata@SABC. That's MOKOENATA@SABC. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
When it comes to world-class exhibitions and event solutions, one name leads the way: GL Events South Africa. From concept to completion, we transform ideas into exceptional experiences, delivering seamless events for conferences, exhibitions, business functions, and more. With global expertise and local insight, we provide innovative, sustainable, and turnkey event solutions you can trust. Partner with the industry leader. Partner with GL Events South Africa. Visit gl-events.co.za.
Hashtag on the move and connect with us.
We are in the cubicle and we're discussing pivoting, particularly how to know when to pivot and when to hold your ground with career change coach Yasmin Samson Derocha. A really interesting question that Benjamin posed just before the break, and I think we should revisit that. That emotional decision versus the strategic decision. It could be both or either when you're deciding to pivot. How do you tell the difference between that emotional career change decision and the strategic career change decision, and of course when to make which?
Yeah, I think it's important to note that everything is driven by emotion. We like to think that it's not, but it is. And the difference between an emotional decision and a strategic one is the level of understanding you have about what you want and what you need. I think Benjamin made a very good point earlier around, it feels like a luxury sometimes to go after what you want, but a career pivot doesn't mean that you doesn't actually happen when you quit. Doesn't actually start when you quit your job. It starts way before that, when you decide, okay, I no longer want to be in this organization, in this industry, so I'm going to do my job, I'm going to do it well, but all that extra 110% that I give to my job, I'm going to put that energy towards figuring out what's next. I'm going to understand what I really want, what I really need. I'm going to start reaching out to my network. I'm going to start having conversations. If you start doing that, then it becomes a strategic move, because by the time you actually leave, you've got career opportunities, you've probably got a job that you're moving into. And whilst it was all driven from emotion of your needs not being met and you feeling unhappy, actually you've directed a lot of that energy towards your future instead of just piling it into the job where you are now that isn't fulfilling you, which is essentially like pouring water into a leaky bucket.
Absolutely.
Is the analogy that I tend to give.
Yeah, Yasmin. I mean, it's not easy, right, making that leap, because at times you are using indicators of faith to actually kind of get there, because you're probably using a sense of like, you know what, this is what I'm not satisfied with. You highlighted all these great areas that are very vital, where you feel like, you know what, I'm getting this dissatisfaction and I'm not really getting that personal growth here. Could you help us understand, how do you ready yourself for that change? Because I think there can be a sense of like, maybe I'm not skilled or equipped enough, and then you don't make the leap and you stay unhappy. But I think you can create a sense of change by preparing yourself for that eventuality.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Yeah, so there's a couple of things there's a few things that I help people do. The first is helping people really understand what skills and expertise they have, because most people have just been on this treadmill, and especially if you are a high performer or you're quite, you're a leader in an organization, you're used to just moving from one thing to the next. So I call it your leadership value proposition, which is understanding your unique blend of your experience, your expertise, your strengths, your values and character, your personality and passion, and your leadership. When you bring all of those things together, you start to understand, okay, not only what I bring to the table and what I am good at and the problems that I solve, but how do I show up as a leader? What am I motivated and driven by? And what makes me me in the workplace? Now, this is really important. And if you look at any of my socials, I go on about this constantly, about how important it is to know that, because once you know that, you're able to understand the unique value that you bring to any market. Because the reality is that, you move from one industry to another, and most industries have the same problems. It's people, growth, cost, culture. So you being able to understand how you solve those problems is really, really critical. It means that, yes, you might lack in industry experience or a specific role experience, but actually look at everything else you bring to the table. That's a massive bit, and it massively impacts people's confidence. The second is kind of what I touched a little bit on earlier, which is you've got to make a decision. You've got to make a decision that you no longer want that promotion in your organization, because as soon as you decide that you want something new, you can start to shift your time and energy to figuring out what that is.
Yeah.
Because right now, if you're in a constant hamster wheel of just pouring your time and energy into your job, you're not going to be able to make any strategic move going forward.
Well, Yasmin, before we wrap up, I mean, I'm pretty sure that when you do what you do and you tell someone, no, I don't think you should be pivoting, it's not particularly a no, it's a not right now. And if you're preparing for the time when it will be possible, I mean, you've given us some of those tips already, but when you're preparing to pivot perhaps in a year or two and you'd like to upskill, is that a good idea for you to do? Sometimes, what's standing between you and the pivot is maybe a certification, a little course to upskill to a place where it's more comfortable for you on the other side of the pivot.
Yeah, I mean, it depends what you're pivoting into, right? There is so much, it's a comfort blanket sometimes, qualifications, because people don't feel ready. And the reality is, if you do your leadership value proposition, you might realize that you're actually way more equipped than you need to be. If you're moving into a space where there is a huge skill gap, maybe you're going into, I don't know, say you're deciding to become a therapist. Yes, you're going to need to do a counseling qualification, or say you decide you want to pivot into being an advisor in AI, and your AI expertise right now is okay, but not expertise level, then yeah, you might want to upskill in that. But I would say that it's very dependent on where you're going into. It's not just don't just throw tens of thousands of, whatever into a qualification just because it's a comfort blanket. Really assess the gap and whether that gives you the credibility that you need on top of what you already have to get there. And just to kind of like wrap up, I think it's really important in all of this to assess, your financial situation, what's going on at home. So actually building out a plan of, okay, I know that I'm going to need to save X amount if I want to make a comfortable move. It's all about identifying the things that put you back in control rather than handing that control over to your organization.
All right, we have to leave it there, Yasmin. Thank you so much for joining us. Where can we find you? Seem like you have these intriguing career conversations online. Take us to the links.
Yeah, I will. So you can find me on Instagram at the Yasmin Darosha. So THEYASMIN DAROCHA.
Well, thank you so much. This has been very helpful. Thank you for joining us. That's Yasmin Samson Darosha, who is a career change coach. Can you change and pivot from where you are? Do you think it's that easy, especially when unemployment is so rife and such a big challenge here on the African continent? Let us know on our WhatsApp number, +2783 288 6684. It's 10:30 Central African Time. Let's bring back Musibudi Makura for the latest sports.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thank you, Benjamin. Good morning once again from the sports desk. We'll start with football news. So Simba SC captain Rashin Derek has signed a 1-year extension with the Tanzanian Giants, insisting he never hesitated about prolonging his stay. Now, the 30-year-old defender has rediscovered his form since joining Mamelodi Sundowns, thriving under coach Steve Barker and embracing his leadership role in the CAF Champions League. The South African-born defender said the warmth of the fans made his decision easy, describing the love that he has felt since arriving as unmatched in his career. On to this now. Francis Ngannou will return to mixed martial arts after a 19-month absence when he faces Brazil's Felipe Lins on the 16th of May. The 5-round heavyweight bout will be part of the most valuable promotion's inaugural MMA fight card, headlined by Ronda Rousey as well as Gina Carano in Los Angeles in the USA. Now, former UFC champion Ngannou has not fought in MMA since October of 2024, when the Cameroonian stopped Rene Ferreira in the first round to win the PFL Super Fights Heavyweight Championship title. Ngannou's exit from the UFC in January of 2023 was a massive moment in MMA history, as one of the sport's biggest stars opted to walk away from the world's biggest promotion. The 39-year-old joined the Professional Fighters League, the PFL, in May of 2023, but fought just once for the MMA promotion. On to cricket news now. Sri Lanka have appointed former South Africa as well as India coach Gary Kirsten on a 2-year deal following Sanath Jayasurya's resignation after the team's early exit from the T20 World Cup. Now, Kirsten, who guided India to the 2011 World Cup title, will begin his tenure officially on the 15th of May as part of a wider revamp of Sri Lanka's high performance centre. Sanath, one of the country's greatest cricketers, will remain involved as director of the centre, overseeing player development. Sri Lanka co-hosted the recent T20 World Cup, which was won by India, by the way, this past weekend, but unfortunately failed to progress beyond the Super 8s, sealing their early exit with a defeat to New Zealand. On to swimming news now. South African Olympic champion Chad le Clos has partnered with Virgin Active to launch the Chad le Clos Virgin Active Academy that is aimed at spreading his ethos across the country. Now, this academy offers structured programs for swimmers at all levels. The 33-year-old says discussions between himself as well as a global brand began more than a year ago before the partnership was officially launched this year.
So no, it's been a crazy journey. It's been happened really quickly. So we started chatting about just over a year ago, and then it became official pretty much beginning of this year. But we've been working behind the scenes since about September last year, gathering coaches. We've got some really exciting things. Unfortunately, I can't announce too much because we're announcing some really big coaches coming on board in the next 6 weeks.
And finally, in tennis news, Mira Andreeva's Indian Wells title defense met a bad-tempered end on Monday in round 3 as Katerina Siniakova stunned the talented Russian teenager 4-6, 7-6 and 6-3. The 18-year-old Andreeva opened her bid to retain her crown with an imperious 6-love demolition of Solona Sira. But she was in trouble early on and often against 44th ranked Siniakova in a roller coaster contest that ended with a shot from the Czech Republican that hit the net cord and dribbled over in one last frustrating moment. Andreeva slung her racket as she approached the net before departing the court with a defiant gesture at the crowd. And that's a wrap from the sports desk at the Sawa. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, do send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11714 4459. I'm back with the final sports update for the morning in the next hour. For Channel Africa Sport, I am Musibudi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Africa is changing and the world is paying attention. This March, Channel Africa invites you to be part of a new conversation. Africa Matters. A platform where experts, policymakers, and thought leaders come together to unpack the big issues of our time. Technology, politics, economics, climate change, and the future of our people. This is where ideas meet action, where change becomes opportunity, where Africa's voice takes its rightful place on the global stage. In March 2026, Channel Africa hosts Africa Climate Change Recovery Summit. Join the dialogue. Be part of the movement. Channel Africa, the African perspective. 60 years of Channel Africa. Your trusted voice, your African perspective into the future.
It's time for Chandu Goligege to give us our latest business news.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thank you, Benjamin. Good morning. Money laundering and the financing of terrorism remain pressing concerns in the Southern African Development Community region, prompting member states to step up their efforts. Central banks have responded by forging bilateral and multilateral agreements aimed at enhancing regional financial integration, payment systems and monetary stability. In a recent development, the Bank of Namibia and the South African Reserve Bank signed a revised memorandum of understanding to strengthen institutional cooperation. Spokesperson for the South African Reserve Bank, Yolanda Vacha, elaborates on the MOUs and bilateral agreements with various central banks in the SADC region.
And so the MOUs are then entered into bilaterally with various central banks in the region, depending on the need as well as, the topics of interest at the time. So some MOUs that we have with central banks would be about 10 years old. Some would be maybe even older than that. And from time to time, we then look at the MOUs and we update the agreements based on emerging topics such as, payments, anti-money laundering, as well as, resolution.
South African lender Absa Group posted a 12.25% rise in full-year headline earnings as credit impairments declined and the corporate and investment banking and Africa regions units reported growth. The country's third biggest lender by assets posted headline earnings of $1.51 billion in the year ended December 31st. Pre-provision profit increased 4%. Absa, as that revenue grew by 5%, supported by strong non-interest income growth and a moderate net interest income performance, despite modest retail loan growth and margin compression. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa and his Brazilian counterpart, President Lula da Silva, have called for an increase in trade between the two countries. Ramaphosa is visiting the country following his trip to the U.S. He says that the two countries need to work on increasing the number of companies doing business in each other's country.
This visit presents us with an opportunity to, in many ways, reimagine a world of opportunities which is anchored by shared values and a clear vision. As Team South Africa, we are keen to rebalance our trade by growing and diversifying South African export or trade with Brazil.
China's exports surged in the first 2 months of this year despite trade tensions with the U.S. Official figures show exports jumped by more than 20% in January and February, which is almost 3 times the rate predicted by economists. It puts the country on track to top the record-breaking annual trade surplus it saw in 2025. The announcement comes as U.S. President Donald Trump is expected to visit China in early April to meet his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping. U.S. President Donald Trump and his Russia counterpart Vladimir Putin have spoken telephonically on the fighting in Iran and Ukraine. President Putin urged a diplomatic solution to the situation in Iran. Trump says the fighting in Iran is almost over, a comment that saw the price of oil drop by over 10% to below $90 a barrel. Sharon Bryce Peace reports.
While the Israeli-US war with Iran is very much still ongoing, the positive sentiment from President Trump on the trajectory of the conflict buoyed markets and saw a massive retreat in the oil price that had reached $119 a barrel earlier, providing global economic unease at the broader implications of the conflict. Trump told CBS News that Iran no longer had a navy, no air force and no communications, that their missiles were down to a scatter, and that their drone manufacturing had been impeded by the US attacks. Iranian officials have indicated that they are ready for a long, drawn-out war, and argued that the conflict would only end due to economic pressure being exerted on the United States.
$1 in Nigeria is 1,000 naira 394, Botswana 13 pula 44, Kenya 128 shilling 31, Zambia 19 kwacha 208. BRICS countries $1 in Brazil 5 real 24, Russia 78 rubles 79, India 92 rupee 14, China 6 yuan 91, South Africa 16 rand 65 cents. $1 is 75 pence to the British pound and 86 to the euro. Commodities: gold is trading at $5,176, platinum at $2,197 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil $93.08 a barrel. For any business stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or you can call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I am Chandruko Ligege.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Este é o Caleidoscópio de Canal África, com Remo Samo e João Yabalá.
Moçambique prepara-se para a chegada do ciclone tropical Gezane, prevista para esta sexta-feira, com impacto esperado nas províncias de Sofala, Inhambane e Gaza. O fenómeno, que já causou mais de 30 mortes de destruição significativa em Madagascar, poderá atingir o litoral moçambicano, com ventos de 140 km por hora e chuvas intensas, afetando cerca de 1,1 milhão de pessoas. A aproximação do ciclone surge numa altura em que o país ainda recupera das cheias de janeiro, que provocaram dezenas de mortos e afetaram mais de 700 mil pessoas. Para fazer o ponto de situação, ouvimos Rita Almeida, diretora de Planificação e Cooperação do Instituto Nacional de Gestão e Redução de Riscos de Desastres.
As famílias devem reforçar o teto das casas, as portas e as janelas. Devem evitar fazer-se tanto à rua, devem prestar atenção sobre as orientações em relação a centros de acomodação temporário, devem preparar um kit mínimo básico com fósforos, produtos alimentares, medicamentos.
De segunda a sexta-feira, das 20 às 21 horas locais, este é o Caleidoscópio do Canal África.
Palesa and Benjamin fuel your day with fresh African perspective on Channel Africa.
ebusweni bam khanyiselwa nguwe nayivalwa indlela yam fulelwa nguwe kuhle kuhle makuhlale kunje kuwe kuwe ngiyawuhlale nginje angisakhona angisakuboni angisakutholi ngihlanyiswa nguwe kuhle kuhle makuhlale kunje kuwe kuwe ngiyawuhlale nginje ba-da-ba-ba-da, ba-da-da-ba-da-da-ba-ba. Ba-da-da-ba-ba-da, ba-da-da-ba-da-da-ba-ba. Ba-da-da-ba-ba, ba-da-da-ba-da-da-ba-ba. Yeah, ba-da-da-ba-ba-da, Ungemizwa yami uphela nguwe, ey. Ungena phambi kwami uphehlwa nguwe, ey. Kuhle kuhle makuhlale kunje, ey. Kuwe kuwe ngiyawuhlale kunje angisakhoni angisakuboni angisakuboni ngihlanyiswa nguwe kuhle kuhle makuhlale kunje kube kube ngiyawuhlale kunje ba-da-ba-ba-ba-da, ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba-ba. Eh, ba-da-ba-ba-ba-da, ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba-ba. Eh, ba-da-ba-ba-ba, ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba-ba. Eh, ba-da-ba-ba-ba-da, ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba-ba. Ooh, ooh, hey, hey. Ooh, 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 hey, hey. Kuhle kuhle makuhlale kunje kube kube ngiyawuhlale kunje ba-da-ba-ba-ba-da, ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba-ba. Eh, ba-da-ba-ba-ba-da, ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba-ba. Eh, ba-da-ba-ba-ba, ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba-ba. Eh, ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Hey, music all the way from Eswatini. That one is Amanda Moore giving us Ngihlanyiswa nguwe. That means, hey, you making me crazy, baby. 47 minutes past 10 o'clock Central African time. We are still keeping the conversations going right here on The Move. We've been speaking to Yasmin Daracha. We're speaking about career change. And yeah, don't make just a quick move, man, without really being certain. But also think about what she was saying, that it shouldn't just be based on a complete, like, you know what, I'm moving to the forest and I'm going to be a wood chopper,
Yeah.
right? Just think about the skills that you already have and how those can help you move into a related industry.
I think that is a misconception about the word pivoting, and I'm glad that we got some advice on that, because the people think a pivot is a complete 180. So literally looking away from all that you've done, all that you've learned,
Sure.
and just doing something completely different. But actually, if you've had some years of experience, those years of experience can be very useful in whatever other industry or career you want to pursue. You just really need to figure out why. So it can't be just like a sudden decision to make. To say, yeah, next week I'm pivoting. I'm so tired. Take some time to think about it. Take some time to find out how you can use the skills you already have have and the talents you already have to maximize on the pivoting. And of course, the no is not an outright no. It can just be a not right now. You can decide to pivot, but you can also take time, a year, maybe a couple of months, to really plan your new structuring into your new job or your new career.
Or just do it, If you feel like the environment is really, really testing, just make that pivot because, Yasmin highlighted issues around integrity, issues around personal growth. If you feel like, you're not getting that out of where you're working, go for it. There are opportunities that you can master. It might take time for you to do that, but invest your time in that transition. What's your take? Do you think it's that easy? We've got a big challenge on the African continent, high unemployment. Maybe you're going to say, in this environment, Ben, there's no way to move. Let me know how easy or difficult it is to pivot on the African economy. +278 288 6684. It's 10:50 Central African time. Stay with us.
We are on OpenView's audio bouquet. Channel 628. Africa at Play with Neto and ETO Chemane.
Lelintle, talk to us about your relationship with your father, Coach Pitso. What is this one thing that he said to you that is still stuck at the top of your head?
Coach Pitso and our mom, Moira Kakale, have always told us that whatever we do in life, we must do it to the best of our abilities and represent our family well. But the big thing is do what you love and do it with all the passion that you have. And I think we see it in both their work. I mean, my mom has done a really good job with placing Coach Pitso in different clubs around the world, and she's negotiated contracts, and she's showing that as a woman you can also do work that is seen, and you can also get respect from men in a male-dominated space. And I think my dad has also shown that you must never underestimate a Black African man.
Lelintle Mosimane, a South African communications and digital media professional. Lelintle is also a daughter to a great mentor when it comes to the game of football, Coach Jingles Mosimane.
Live every Saturday and Sunday from 2 to 5 p.m. For 60 years, Channel Africa has connected the continent. Celebrate the journey. Celebrate the African perspective.
Love it way more. I say dreams, so. Love it way more. Yeah. Oh, Ferrari look good on you. Bugatti look good on you. Gucci look good on you. Louis good on you. Ask you one question, I want to hear this from you. Girl, I want to know. Say you go there for me, if I dey drink garri, say you go do all the thing where you say you go do for me, if I no get the money, say you go stand by me, say you go do all the thing where you say you go do for me. Bam bam, you know that, I know that. My love for you no get pattern. Rhyme and read you like San Sultan. Sing it out loud anyway that I can. Oh, my mommy, my daddy, soon they go miss you, my baby, Somebody know somebody. For your matter, I go kiss somebody. You know this love, something's not a joking thing. Baby girl, you know something. Say that somebody do somebody. For your matter, I go kiss somebody. Say it, is it me and you, mommy? Is it me and you, mommy? Ferrari look good on you. Bugatti look good on you. Gucci look good on you. Louis good on you. Ask you one question, I want to hear this from you. Girl, I want to know. Say you go there for me, if I dey drink garri, say you go do all the thing where you say you go do for me, if I no get the money, say you go stand by me, say you go do all the thing where you say you go do for me. Oh, I'm just asking you a question. Mommy, you no need to vex you. If this wasn't my position, say you go give me your best, yo. I love you, girl, no be baby. You know for sure you're my baby. I'll be awake when you sleeping. just to make sure I'm not dreaming, no, not dreaming, no. You know that I love you, baby. Do anything for you, baby.
This is the voice of Techno. This one is on you. 10:54 Central Africa time. This is Channel Africa, the African perspective. I feel like our guest in the next hour in our Money Matters knows a little bit about me. And I'm kind of embarrassed because the conversation we're going to have requires planning, particularly financial planning when it comes to a trip. And I am a little bit of a last minute kind of girl. Like, no, maybe we feel like doing something, let's just do it. Forget the budget. We'll try the budget again next month. And yeah, it might sound fun and adventurous, but it's actually not great when we speak about financial wellness. So we are going to getting some advice. I feel like this advice is for me, and I'm pretty sure so many people out there as well. And even though there's a lot of excitement when it comes to planning and booking a trip, there can be a lot of unexpected finances that come into play in that planning as well. So Gerald Muandiambira, who's a financial planner and CEO of Sugar Wealth Creekle, will be joining us in the next hour of the show to give us great tips on managing our money and making our travel dreams come true without breaking the bank. And if you're anything like me, you need this advice just as much as I do.
Hey, remember, we are on all social media platforms, so stay in touch. We'd love to know what you're thinking about all these wonderful conversations we're having here on Channel Africa. At Channel Africa 1, that's the magic handle. You can stay connected with us on all platforms like TikTok, to Thread, to X. At Channel Africa 1, use the number 1 after Channel Africa. And then you can also find us on Facebook with that at Channel Africa handle. Yeah, this is Channel Africa. We connect you to Africa and the world. Remember, we are the international voice of the South African Broadcasting Corporation. You can find us also on our website, channelafrica.co.za. Hey, you can have us right on quick, very easy. Just when you pick up your phone, we can be there with you. Remember, we've got the Channel Africa mobile app and also the SABC Plus app. Those are great ways to find us. And DSTV OpenView audio bouquets are always there. Remember, this is Channel Africa, first with the African story globally. Pivoting, that's what we've been talking about this hour. It's pivoting. I've never had to pivot. The only thing that I feel like I have pivoted from is maybe something within my industry, but I don't really think it's pivoting. I'm a journalist, so moving from one medium to another medium, because I'm trained in all mediums, I never thought that was pivoting. But yes, I moved from print to broadcasting, but it just always feels like the same thing.
It is pivoting. I mean, yeah, I think I'm glad that you mentioned that, because that's the thing. People think pivoting should be completely different.
I don't think it's pivoting.
But
it's the
moving,
same thing.
I think it is
because
pivoting.
I was trained in the same thing.
Yes, yeah, but you are working in different aspects of the same thing, right? Journalism. So moving from print media to broadcasting media is a pivot within the media space. And I think it's important for people to notice and think about it that way, because you're thinking, if I'm pivoting, I have to be doing an entire different career. Whereas you could pivot within the same career. Maybe you want to try a different department, and you've learned how to do that, but you've always just worked in this particular department. And you can look at this industry and say, I'm going to try a different department in the same industry.
I'll tell you why I disagree. If I had to pivot, something that I would call pivoting, right, is maybe if I become corporate. If I take the skills that I have as a journalist and take them into a corporate environment, because that would have nothing to do with journalism, then I would say I'm pivoting.
I just think it's a different kind of pivoting.
I don't think so.
It is. It is. I mean, that's what our guest told us. Like, you don't have to move industries altogether.
Yeah,
you can't just move into a different kind of what you do.
Communications thing is not necessarily moving to a completely different thing.
Moving from print to broadcasting is pivoting, Benjamin.
Is it?
Yes,
I
it is.
I don't think so.
Well, let us know what you think.
Disagree.
I think it is
Okay.
moving from one sort of medium to another, even within the same, I guess, scope of work.
Okay.
Certainly is pivoting. There are some people who stay in print media all their lives and they're like, nah, I'm never going to go into broadcasting. That's not my medium. But moving between the other, yeah, I definitely think that is pivoting. But hey, it's all up to you. We want to find out what you think about that pivoting conversation, especially if you're someone who's really thinking about pivoting at this time. I know so many people are as well. Our WhatsApp line is +2783 288 6684. We're about to wrap this one up and go into the next hour of the show. More conversations on the other side, and we're still streaming live on our Facebook and YouTube pages. But first, let's get our latest news update.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Palesa. Looking at your top stories, the U.S. seeks to resume flying aircraft and drones over Mali, and conflict-related sexual violence in the DRC remains widespread. Your latest news. Greetings to our listeners. The U.S. is nearing a deal with Mali that will allow Washington to resume flying aircrafts and drones over the West African country's airspace to gather intelligence on jihadist groups linked to Al-Qaeda. Last month, Washington made the first move to implement the agreement by lifting sanctions targeting the defense minister and other senior officials who it said had ties with Russian mercenaries. This had been a key request by Mali's government. The U.S. hopes this will lead Mali to grant the U.S. permission to fly intelligence gathering missions over the country's vast terrain, where jihadists have been gaining ground. The Congo Republic President Denis Sassou Nguesso looks set to extend his decades-long rule in elections on Sunday. The 82-year-old former paratrooper first took power in the oil-rich Central African nation in a coup in 1979. He lost Congo Republic's first multi-party elections in 1992, but seized power again in 1997 after a civil war. He has now ruled for a combined total of almost 42 years, making him Africa's third longest-serving leader. Sassou will face 6 candidates in the election, with 2 of the main opposition parties boycotting the vote. South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa has requested to be given until the 16th of this month to submit his written replies to questions by the members of the ad hoc committee that's looking into concerns around national security. The committee had previously sent a list of written questions to Ramaphosa dealing with wide-ranging allegations of criminal infiltration, corruption and political interference in the justice system of the country. The allegations were made by the KwaZulu-Natal Province Police Commissioner, Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, during a media briefing in July last year. The committee was deliberating on the list of witnesses that are still scheduled to appear. The chairperson of the committee, Soviet Likhanyani, explains.
Councillor to the President, Honorable Gweranhoff, has written to us to request that the office of the President be given until the 16th of March to respond to the questions that members of Parliament have submitted to, or members of the committee have submitted to the office.
A heated exchange has occurred at the Madlanga Commission in South Africa between the chairperson, Justice Mbuyiseli Madlanga, and the legal team of Northwest Province businessman Suleiman Karim. This after Karim's legal team suggested that Justice Madlanga had prejudged on the application that was still being brought forward. The lawyers asked for a postponement to review some documents that they felt had relevance to the line of questioning. The evidence leader suggested a 45-minute break. However, they dismissed the suggestion. The commission is investigating allegations of criminal infiltration and political interference in the criminal justice system. Justice Madlanga elaborated.
I take very strong exception to that attitude.
I don't think...
In fact, I find it unprofessional for you to say that I have prejudged issues purely because I'm engaging you. I take strong exception to that.
I don't think that you should take exception. And what
I do.
Can I respond, Chair? What you put to me was that you weren't going to allow an opportunity for the postponement application.
I did not say I am not. I never said so. We can play back the tape. We can play back the recording.
Then I was mistaken.
So that is, I can actually, to be rough, I can say you are lying.
Lastly, the United Nations mission in the Democratic Republic of Congo says conflict-related sexual violence remains widespread, particularly in the eastern provinces of North and South Kivu. A new report by the UN Joint Human Rights Office has documented hundreds of cases last year, affecting more than 1,500 victims, most of them women and girls. Associate Professor at the Royal Danish Defence College and Extraordinary Associate Professor at Stellenbosch University, Thomas Mandrup, explains.
The focus has, amongst other things, been on trying to prevent sexual violence, and especially sexual violence against children and protecting children and child soldiers and stuff like that. Due to the conflict with the M23 and the government forces, the Vasalendo and other militias, this work has been severely damaged by war, and it's unfortunately a pattern we see in especially in the DRC, but also in other conflicts, that the civilian population suffers when conflict happens and when there's conflict situations, but also that sexual violence used as a tool of war.
Recapping on your top stories, the U.S. is nearing a deal with Mali that will allow Washington to resume flying aircrafts and drones over the West African country's airspace and to gather intelligence on jihadist groups that are linked to Al-Qaeda. For any news stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us at +27 11714 4459. Channel Africa News, I'm Onele Tsinzi.
SABC News. The African Perspective. On the Move with Benjamin and Palesa every weekday on Channel Africa, The African Perspective.
All right, so we've moved into the third hour. Thank you so much to Onele Ntinti for making sure that we get our news on time every single hour. She'll be back with us tomorrow. Stay connected to Africa and the world with Channel Africa, the international voice of the South African Broadcasting Corporation. Watch or listen anytime, anywhere at channelafrica.co.za. Or also on the Channel Africa mobile app and on SABC Plus, or via the DSTV and OpenView audio bouquets. You can also catch us on social media at Channel Africa on Facebook and Channel Africa 1 on all other platforms. Channel Africa, first with the African story globally.
Yeah, we're moving into our Money Matters feature. Send some money for a trip, please. We need a holiday. But hey, outside of planning a trip and, being excited for booking the flights and the accommodation, the money has to speak. And today we're getting good tips on managing your money when making travel dreams come true. Gerald Mandambira will be joining us on that one in just a bit. So stay with us.
To me, oh, na na na, yeah, alright into me, oh. Black jersey on the beat, baby, me tired for this your matter. It don't they give me headache, oh. It be like say we go take a break, oh. Enough of your promises. You say you gon' make it up to me, but you keep getting worse, worse. When was the last time you carried me go cinema to see a movie? You don't take this thing like play. And when last you tell me to bend over, make you jam the thing enter, I guess you're giving it to someone else. If you don't give me quality attention, attention. If you don't give me quality attention, I might get it from somebody else. I might get it from somebody else. If you don't give me quality attention, if you don't give me quality attention, I might get it from somebody else. to me, Aurora to me, to me, Aurora to me, Aurora to me. Before now you they do the caring, calling, texting, chatting. Now me they do the things that you used to do. We no longer do the hold on, pick two, last guy, check up. Baby, I done discuss games we used to play. Something is missing, and I can't seem to find it. No. Something is missing, and you better fix it.
Hey, that's Nigeria's Tiwa Savage. She's doing some good stuff here in the world. From Lagos to Berkeley College, she's training the next gen creators with some African music education. That's fantastic coming from her. Then in that song, she gives us attention. Let's take a break. We're going to be back with more conversation, deeply looking into money matters and travel. I don't know if those things work hand in hand, because when you travel, you want to get rid of the money as much as you can because you want to have a good time. But is that the best way? Can you plan for a holiday? I just think when you get to a holiday, sometimes you just spend as much because you're just having so much of a good time. How do you regulate that feeling? We'll find out later.
Start your day right with Channel Africa Breakfast.
That smells delicious.
Live 5 days a week. Mornings made better with Peter and Asanda on Rise and Shine. Weekdays 6 till 9.
The 141st anniversary of the 1885 Berlin Conference, a meeting of European powers that partitioned Africa without a single African at the table. The borders drawn in European capitals would go on to shape the continent's political geography, state formations, conflicts, and even economic structures for generations to come. Are Africa's contemporary challenges still rooted in those decisions in 1885?
We are fearful of rethinking thinking. We are fearful of even unthinking thinking. We want to continue with the thinking which we inherit from other people. But it is important that we go to drawing board and rethink thinking itself and even unthink some of the things. And the issue is not even with the people, it is with the political elites.
Professor Sabelo J. Ndlovu Gacheni, who's a professor and holder of a Canada Research Chair.
Mornings made better with Peter and Asanda on Rise and Shine. Palesa and Benjamin fuel your day with fresh African perspective on Channel Africa.
All right, this is our Money Matters feature where we break down money issues. The excitement of planning a trip is real, but booking flights is picking the perfect hotel is probably tricky when it comes to money. But once you start thinking about travel budgeting, reality sets in. How much should you save before you go, and how do you avoid overspending while abroad? We're going to get on to the practical tips of managing money and doing this while traveling. Gerald Wam and Yambi joins us on the line, financial planner and CEO of Sugar Wealth Creek. Gerald, it's been a while, but it's good to always have you back. Thank you for joining us.
Always a pleasure, and good morning to all your listeners.
Fantastic. Travel and money. Yeah, those things go hand in hand, but that's when you're spending money. So I don't know what you mean we must be responsible here. We don't want to be responsible when we are on travel with money. We want to spend. Or am I wrong?
No, that is true. When most people go on a holiday, they want to be in a mood to enjoy what they want to enjoy, eat what they want to eat, buy what they want to buy. But in order to make that possible, it means that your trip must be planned, and also the finances you allocate towards your trip should also be planned as well. So if you are a new person to traveling, I would say travel in your country first. Go to the resorts in your country, get used to the lifestyle before you start thinking about crossing a border.
Gerald, sometimes you're like, oh, I really need a break. And you didn't plan for it months ahead. You just go onto those booking those booking apps like Airbnb, Booking.com and the likes, and you're like, yeah, I'm just going to go here this weekend. I know it sounds irresponsible, but we make very irresponsible decisions when we really want to go somewhere. Is it necessary to book months or sometimes a year in advance? Or does it really, is it according to what kind of experience or where you're going? Because you can't decide today unless you have a lot of money that you're going to Europe,
Look, the longer in advance you plan and you book, normally it works out the cheaper. However, you also have opportunities which occur last minute. So on some of these websites where you can do bookings, when a hotel has an extra room, sometimes they'll give it away at 50%, 70% discount just so that it has occupancy that weekend. So there are last minute deals on flights and accommodation. But in general, the rule is try and book as far advance as possible. And also try and know that you're not being ripped off, because sometimes if you haven't been looking at the price, if I say 50% off, you have no idea what the full price should have been. And I could actually be inflating the price.
Absolutely. Oh, it's the same price. I've just added that 50% clause there just to confuse the enemy, right?
Definitely. It happens a lot. Plan ahead. As I said, try domestic travel first.
Yeah.
Because once you start crossing borders, you have this thing called an exchange rate, which is the value of your currency versus the currency where you're going. If you're starting to travel across borders, first travel to countries with weaker currencies than your currency. That makes your holiday less expensive than staying at home. So, for example, if you're here in South Africa, if you go to Southeast Asia, Rand is stronger than most of those currencies. You'll have a good holiday because everything works out cheaper for you. But if you start going to Europe and the Americas, where their currencies are much stronger than ours, you start having those bad feelings when you're ordering a cup of coffee for £5 and then you do the conversion and you realize I'm buying a coffee for 100 Rand and you won't really have a good time.
Yeah. Gerald, let's talk a little bit about the idea of traveling local and why that's good for your budgeting. I also think it gives you a run on what a good travel experience should be, right? Because if you are doing a short lift in a beautiful destination in your own neighborhood, you get a first-hand experience of good service, good hoteling, because you can afford that good service in your own country. How important is that background check in your own country where you have that momentum to build what to expect when going to another country and how to keep the quality of travel in a high sense?
Okay, so the nice thing about local travel is that firstly, you know the language. Secondly, in case of emergency, you're not far from friends, family. And thirdly, South Africa is one of the top destinations in the world. People are coming here.
Hallelujah.
So how can you start going to explore the rest of the world when you haven't even explored the South Africa most people, international visitors, are coming to see? Most of the hotels, most of the lodges in South Africa are world class because they're not used to entertaining South Africans. They're used to entertaining international visitors who have much higher standards than we do. So definitely locally, do your research, but there's a lot of small boutique hotels, a lot of safari lodges, and a lot of hidden gems in South Africa. So I would say spend time on the social media because there's a lot of travel bloggers who often highlight some of these hidden gems and travel local. International travel, you have the risk of firstly, your bag doesn't even arrive. Secondly, language. Thirdly, you lose your bank cards and your wallet, and if you are going to start going international, start with countries where there's a South African embassy or consulate nearby, so that if you have a problem, there's somewhere you can go to. Then a country where they don't speak your language, they don't even speak English, there's no South African consulate, and your bank cannot even do anything to help you where you are. And when you travel internationally, make sure you have travel insurance because that's why it's there, especially when you travel internationally.
Well, Gerald, it's tough because we're thinking about all these things, but we haven't even started thinking about the money yet. And we want to go to so many different places. But now you keep mentioning new things like travel insurance and this and that. It's like, I didn't put that in the budget that I had to go somewhere. All I thought is I went on Instagram, I saw a nice location, I saw someone have a great trip. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to have a trip just like theirs. We need to find out how we can collate this information. What is the information collating system that we need to use before we even start budgeting?
Look, I think just do a basic spreadsheet and just write down, or even on a notepad, write down accommodation, write down transport or travel expenses, write down insurance, and then work from there. With insurance, travel insurance, normally if you make your booking using your Visa or your MasterCard, automatically you get travel insurance because you used those payment platforms. And all these things are things you need to be aware of. Also, when you're moving it to go internationally for a holiday, let your bank know how long you're out there, because these days with so much scams and fraud going on, the moment your card is swiped outside South Africa, they'll block it. And sometimes if you are the one who's done the traveling, then you're now going to be inconvenienced because you're now abroad and your card is blocked. Often if you go abroad, the business hours are not the same as South Africa, so getting hold of a call center here will be a nightmare. So let the bank know when you're traveling, give them your dates and give them limits as to how much you think you'll be spending, so that if they see anything that is odd, so for example, if you lose your card in that country, they'll automatically know that this is above what you said you were going to spend, and then they will definitely block those payments. But it's a big thing, card fraud, and even locally, just be careful with your money, but try and use electronic payments. They're easier to manage. But in some countries like Africa, you have to take cash, because in Africa, a lot of those countries don't have payment platforms and electronic devices. You use cash in Africa, so be aware, because Africa can have a great holiday, very cheap, but you need to be safer because those are cash economies.
Hey, Gerald gets practical with us when it comes to money and travel. We'll continue our Money Matters after this.
Keeping you on the know and on the move. Africa Matters. The conversation on climate change and financing Africa's recovery. Only on Channel Africa.
We're proud to announce that Wits Business School is actually our partner. They are hosting us. The second most important thing, though, for me, is that we often go to these summits, these conferences, and you find that you never really know where to find solutions and outcomes that came out of those discussions. So Wits Business School will craft our outcomes document, which will have steps to say what are the follow-ups and how do we measure success and what do we need to do next.
Across the continent, climate change is forcing tough decisions. This is Africa Matters. Stay tuned to Channel Africa. Stream us on our new and updated website, channelafrica.co.za.
All right, we're speaking all things money right now, but particularly money and travel. And it's an important conversation to have because we all want to have a little, staycation here and there, or, vacation in a year. And so you have to plan that money practically. And Gerald Mwandiambira, who's a financial planner and CEO of Sugar Creek Wealth, is helping us get tips on how to manage our money when we're thinking about traveling. There is one thing that we haven't discussed as yet, Gerald. The budget itself and the planning for the money will be dependent on whether you're traveling alone, you're traveling as a couple, or you're traveling as a group. What are the considerations to make in these three scenarios?
Look, traveling as a group is best because that's where you get the bigger discounts when there's more of you traveling. So group bookings and family bookings often work out cheaper. Traveling alone often works out the most expensive because remember, a hotel room is normally designed for two people. So, if you can travel with a friend, it always makes it a lot easier for you to enjoy it. And in terms of budget, look, if I was to say, if you are going on holiday, how much should you spend? I'll say, do not spend more than a month of your salary. Okay? I think a month's salary saved up is a reasonable amount you can save for holiday and you can recover from. Once your holiday is costing more than a month of your income, then it's no longer pleasant because you're going to come back and be paying bills for quite a while. So that's why, as much as people love America and Europe because we see it all on the movies, they're the last places you want to go to because it is so expensive. Europe, America, unless you have family accommodating you, stay away. I would say best holidays for Africans is Africa. Check out Kenya. Those shillings are wonderful when you convert them from rand. Check out Nigeria, even better. Especially when you're coming from an economy which is healthier than theirs. So I would say there's so many great destinations: Ghana, Nigeria, Kenya, Zimbabwe. I mean, Zimbabwe has been voted one of the top tourist destinations.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you can get into those countries, enjoy them. If they're leaving Europe for Africa, why do you want to go to Europe and be cold? Why do you want to go to Europe and look at a metal tower and call it the Eiffel Tower?
You are a proper ambassador for Africa. I love that, Gerald. There are these little costs, like you highlighted, the medical certificates that you need. When you go to a different part of the world, you have to think about also transportation. There's little things like tips as well that you have to consider in your makeup of that financial planning. But we never do, because you think a tip is just something random.
Yeah, no, a tip is very important because that's how people serve you, and they serve you for that. So it's those extra costs. Medical, very big. So as much as I'm pushing Africa is the one place you have to know your medical story, because in certain countries in Africa you get things like yellow fever and tropical diseases we've never heard of.
Yeah.
I've heard of people who've gone to Mozambique and not enjoyed the holiday because they caught malaria. Because we're coming from a place where malaria doesn't exist, but in the rest of Africa, those mosquitoes, they eat every day. So you need to be prepared for malaria. They chow you. You have to take your chloroquine tablets. You need to have your yellow fever certificates. And it gets even worse when you go into West Africa and countries at the equator where, they've got bugs we don't know. So just do a bit of research around that as well, because as much as an African holiday is exciting, that's where there's a bit of a downside, because the chances of getting sick in Africa are high. I mean, I remember once I went to Uganda in Kampala, and I don't know what I ate, but I had a runny tummy and I had to fly back. So you need to be careful also, because the food looks nice, but don't try everything. Don't eat monkey.
I'm having
monkey, don't eat it.
I'm having a trauma response just like you right now, because I remember just how sick I got this one time in the Philippines. I don't know what I ate, but I was sick for at least 2 days, and that was a terrible experience on a great trip. Gerald, I know we spoke about who you're going with, but there are also politics associated to the people that you travel with, especially when it comes to the budget. You go with a trip with a group as a group of friends, and then one runs out of money somewhere in between, and you guys have to come in there. You go as a couple, but now all of a sudden one partner is spending much more and the other partner is not, pulling their weight. If you have a budget, especially when you're traveling with people, how do you assert your budget when things start going wrong with the people that you're traveling with?
Yeah, now when you're traveling as a group, that's a problem, because there's always the rich friend and the other friend who doesn't want to spend. And they pretend like they don't have money. And then
the rich friend is taking us on all these other things that we can't afford.
It's the rich friend who said, let's go. And we all went. But you didn't realize how tough it is when you got there. Look, as a group, that's difficult to manage, because you can't say everyone will have the same allowance, because it's the same thing as the one friend who doesn't drink and the ones who drink, and you want to share the bill, and your drinks are all expensive and mine was a Coke. So we need to be responsible when you're traveling as a group. As a couple, there's no way around it. There needs to be one responsible partner who runs the budget for the whole holiday. Otherwise, you will end up fighting and having those problems. And then when you're traveling with children and groups, try and focus on resorts. And what's a resort? A resort is those destinations where they'll cover all your meals, all of the activities. So it's like Sun City, where all 3 meals are covered. All the things you want to do covered, because it means that you have less out-of-pocket expenses as opposed to some holiday destinations where for everything you have to pay extra. They only give you breakfast. So resorts are the best option when you are traveling as a group or even individually, because you minimize on the additional costs because the basics are all taken care of.
I mean, what other emergency costs must you also just put in place, especially when you are moving a little bit away from a safety zone like home?
Look, when you're moving away from a safety zone from home, they say check in with the South African embassy or consulate in that country so they know that you're there. And also have a relative or a friend who you check in with every day at a certain time. So that if something should go wrong, they can alert the authorities and say something's not right.
And money-wise,
don't go on holiday.
What do you do money-wise with those? What should you put in terms of emergency when it comes to money?
When it comes to money emergency, just have someone here who you left a bit of money who can wire you money in case of emergency.
Okay.
So often it doesn't have to be through your bank account, but it can be a MoneyGram or other money transfer method. But I left 1,000 or 2,000 rand with this person, so that if ever I'm really stuck, they can bail me out.
All right, Gerald, this has been very helpful. Tell us where we can connect with you on Sugar Week Creek, or Sugar Wealth Creek rather,
on Sugar Creek Wealth.
Sugar Creek Wealth. Let us know where we can find you.
It's on the website. It's askgerald.co.za, askgerald.co.za, or on social media it's at Ask Gerald CFP, at Ask Gerald CFP, or if you want Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube, you just type in what they don't want you to know about money.
Fantastic. That's Gerald Mwandiandibira, who is a financial planner and CEO of Sugar Creek Wealth. 11:30 right on time. Let's find out what Musibudi has us in sports.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thank you so much, Benjamin. Well, the T20 World Cup winning Indian team was awarded a bonus of $14.24 million on Tuesday by the country's cricket board, a sixth time the prize money they claimed for lifting the title in Ahmedabad past weekend. So India secured the historic third men's T20 World Cup crown with a dominant 96-run victory over New Zealand in a one-sided final on Sunday, earning $2.34 million for the tournament win. Now, the Board of Control for Cricket in India, the world's richest cricket board, announced the additional prize for the Indian team in recognition of their victory, a sum roughly $3 million higher than the tournament's overall prize pot of $11.25 million. Back home now, South African Olympic swimming champion Chad le Clos has partnered with Virgin Active to launch the Chad le Clos Virgin Active Academy, aimed at spreading his ethos across the country. Now, this academy offers structured programs for swimmers at all levels. The 33-year-old says discussions between himself as well as the global brand began more than a year ago before the partnership was officially launched this year.
So no, it's been a crazy journey. It's been happened really quickly. So we started chatting about just over a year, and then it became official pretty much beginning of this year. But we've been working behind the scenes since about September last year, gathering coaches. We've got some really exciting things. Unfortunately, I can't announce too much because we're announcing some really big coaches coming on board in the next 6 weeks.
Now, the Clos says the goal of the academy is to provide a service that no one else in the world can offer.
Basically, the goal is to provide a service that no one else in the world that can do. So, for example, we have 7,400 Learn to Swim members currently. Right, so we're doing Learn to Swim. We're doing Learn to Swim for adults. We're doing level 1, level 2, level 3 Sanjay. We're doing also Olympic squads, so selective gyms will have Olympic training centers. So we'll do probably 3 of those in the next year or so, where
On to the story now. Francis Ngannou will return to mixed martial arts after a 19-month absence when he faces Brazil's Felipe Lins on the 16th of May. The 5-round heavyweight bout will be part of the Most Valuable Promotions inaugural MMA fight card, headlined by Ronda Rousey as well as Gina Carano in Los Angeles in the USA. Now, former UFC champion Ngannou has not fought in MMA since October of 2024 when the Cameroonian stomped Renan Ferreira in the first round to win the PFL Super Fights Heavyweight Championship. Ngannou's exit from the UFC in January of 2023 was a massive moment in MMA, as one of the sport's biggest stars opted to walk away from the world's biggest promotion. The 39-year-old joined the Professional Fighters League in May of 2023, but for just once for the MMA promotion. And finally, in tennis news, Britain's Emma Raducanu says she must be more aggressive if she is to compete with the world's best players after suffering a heavy defeat at Indian Wells. The 2021 US Open champion was defeated 6-1 and 6-1 in just 52 minutes by American 6-seed Amanda Anisimova, who raced into the 4th round. Raducanu admitted the gulf in power and shot weight left her feeling a little bit behind, and also stressed she needs to mix up her game and rediscover her natural style. Having recently enlisted Mark Petchey as a temporary coach, Raducanu insists that she's focused on building momentum despite the setback, pointing to positives from her earlier win over Anastasia Zakharova in the earlier rounds of the Indian Wells tournament. And that's a wrap of your morning sports news right here on Channel Africa. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, do remember to send us an email. That's to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or call us on +27 11714 4459. For Channel Africa Sport, I am Mosibudi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Você é fluente em português? É apaixonado por rádio e quer trabalhar na África do Sul? Você tem documentos que o qualificam para trabalhar na África do Sul? Nesse caso, podemos ter uma oportunidade para você trabalhar no Canal África. Envie seu currículo e demonstração para Canal África @ newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Lembre-se, se você não receber alguma resposta nossa em 14 dias, isso significa que você não foi selecionado. Canal África, a perspectiva africana.
Step into the heart of the day on the move with Palesa and Benjamin.
It's a business news time. Let's get Chandu go back to give us the final edition for the morning.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Benjamin. Good morning. Gabon is turning back to the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, to help put its fiscal house in order. Its push for an IMF loan, which is a prerequisite to unlocking investor cash and other international funding, could help stabilize the Central African OPEC members' finances. It will also likely have significant implications for its cash-strapped regional neighbors. However, while investors and ratings agencies view an IMF program as crucial, worries over Gabon's debt transparency and the government's will push through tough reforms and have bred skepticism. Kenya Pipeline Company's share traded marginally higher in early trade today after listing on the Nairobi Stock Exchange. Earlier shares were trading at 9.4 Kenyan shillings compared to the initial public offering price of 9 Kenyan shillings per share. The Kenyan government sold a 65% stake in the pipeline company, raising $823.07 million in the East African country's first major IPO in nearly 2 decades. South Africa's First National Bank predicts that Q4 GDP figures will show a continuous growth momentum, but at a steady pace. The The bank predicts GDP growth of 0.3%. Senior economist at FNB, Thanda Sithole, estimates this would be largely driven by the retail sector, reflecting the continuous spending by consumers as a result of slower inflation. Stats SA is expected to release figures this afternoon to provide insights into how various sectors of the economy performed between October and December 2025. Sithole adds that the mining and manufacturing sectors will likely slow down the growth as they have been showing signs of contraction.
And then obviously the risk to our estimate of 0.3% also will emanate from the agricultural sector, which is notoriously volatile and can actually swing the estimate to either side of the point forecast that we have of 0.3%. So that's where we are concerned.
Gauteng's key sectors such as health, education and infrastructure development are expected to receive major attention when Finance MEC Lebogang Maile tables the province's budget today. The budget in South Africa's economic hub comes at a time when residents are calling for improved service delivery and safety. Meanwhile, the chairperson of the Community Safety Portfolio Committee in the provincial legislature, Badila Masuku, says strengthening community policing will improve safety.
We are in the process of engaging in the process of reconfiguration, which is something that we are doing oversight on, reconfiguration to actually strengthen community policing. And that's where we also want to see a better part of the budget actually going to make sure that we formalize and we strengthen community policing. Because the general policing, yes, we can actually talk about it, but we want to see more visible community policing happening in our areas.
China's exports surged in the first 2 months of this year despite trade tensions with the US. Official figures show exports jumped by more than 20% in January and February, which is almost 3 times the rate predicted by economists. It puts the country on track to top the record-breaking annual trade surplus it saw in 2025. The announcement comes as US President Donald Trump is expected to visit China in early April to meet his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping. $1 in Nigeria is 1,000 naira 394, Botswana 13 pula 44, Kenya 128 shilling 31, Zambia 19 kwacha 208. BRICS countries, $1 in Brazil, 5 real 24, Russia 78 rubles 79, India 92 rupee 14, China 6 yuan 91, South Africa 16 rand 65 cents. $1 is 75 pence to the British pound and 86 to the euro. Commodities, gold is at $5,176, platinum at $2,197 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil at $93.08 a barrel. That is all from me. For any business stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or you can call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I am Chanduko Ligege.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective. Africa, meet Abedi.
Yeah, that's me.
Abedi is a music lover through and through.
I really love African music.
He's got a taste for all kinds of tunes and spends his days listening to Channel Africa. Guess what? He didn't know.
Okay.
Channel Africa wants to help Abedi and all music lovers everywhere to discover even more incredible music. That is why Channel Africa is calling on all African musicians to submit their music. Musicians, remember to give us all your relevant information. Make your submissions at music@channelafrica.co.za. Submissions are your chance to be heard on radio. But sadly, they do not guarantee that you'll be playlisted. All submissions will be carefully reviewed to see if they meet our station's requirement. Channel Africa, the African Perspective. Tune in and turn up the volume. This is Channel Africa.
What's up? This is KL, Mr. K. Thomas Connor Garden. Right now, you are listening to Channel Africa.
Channel Africa, the African Perspective.
Welcome to the
tequila man. Mañana garikoti mo marame. You been the one, my love. Diamond walking molly. Chinelli and watch the collie. Only vegale simplicity. Bimbo like el poli. Your ex-man looking at me funny and I cause it to me. Mong I'm telling you to my sing bube. I'm different thing funny bube. As a song, marang nandaba. I can put you on. Wanna go nyala. Tangle in the mall. I'm on just my London. Speaking up a share, see him at the London. Baby, want me. Mas lila na mono, my kel wanting sweet. Better tell him it's more than love. This lang and see. Lo lie. Mele super. Bigger when I wear. Don't never look back. I shall pass. You told me them take. Cause you know I want you. Want you.
We touch you, baby. Ebasi hlukanisa uthando lugcwele ngicela ubapheke izitele ozigcwele ungavumi izingene athi ngikusete athi ngikusete uthando lakho ke mina ngawe ngigcwele ngiyakutshela sange bangifaka umoya ngawe ngayifela mangithi ngiyaphuma ngifuna amasenta uze wena nomndeni wami nibedese dala ngikufuna ngayiphela manje usungo wami inhliziyo ifudumele phela amaphutha ngalingasese njalo manginawe ngizizwa ngiphelele ngithi uthanda mina phela kungashintshi yangisanganisa fana nawe angekaphinda bekhona kulelizwe kukhona okuthize ngathi ngikuhlile ungenza ngibize ngithi uthanda mina phela kungashintshi yangisanganisa singanqoba nebhizi ngayihlanganisa kukhona okuthize ngathi ngikuhlile ungenza ngiphile ngithatha ungibeke ebasi hlukanisa uthando lugcwele ngicela ubapheke izitele ozigcwele ungavumi izingene athi ngikusete athi ngikusete athi ngikusete uthando lakho lumenza ngishelela
angicabanga wena njalo sengaba novalo oh baby lalela isikhalo awusathengi I know uthando lami luzokhula njalo ngoba nami ngijabula njalo without you girl I feel incomplete I'm trying to fall like take the lead I'm trying my best can't you see I got you anything no oh baby I think said Ana ilungithatha ungibeke ebasi hlukanisa uthando lugcwele ubapheke izitele ozigcwele ungavumi izingene athi ngikusete athi ngikusete athi ngikusete uthando lakho lumenza ngishelela.
On the Move, weekdays, 9 a.m. to midday. Only on Channel Africa. # On the Move.
I've been there so far, they also for the street. I can't scatter everything on the legit. As encourage enjoyment, you talk say it a kilo. Under fire, the person where they be for. Been this so far, they also for and blessings cover you. You see this life, make money, drop money, enjoy yourself. Problems don't they finish you. If you want to know the coco, you go make you the logo. Plenty blessings, plenty they follow. Sure you think say I don't know, don't be today. I remember Sakma used be the play. I've been there so far, they also for the street. I could scatter everything on the legit. I see correct enjoyment, you talk say he the kilo. Thunder fire, the person where they beef. I've been there so far, they also for the street. I could scatter everything on the legit. I see correct enjoyment, you talk say he the kilo. Thunder fire, the person where they beef.
Hey, Rude Boy with one titled Enjoyment, and before that, Sete with KO Youngstana and Blackie. Let's take a break. We'll be back. We're wrapping things up right here on The Move.
Your life, your rhythm, your Africa. Channel Africa. Find it for free on Google Play and the Apple App Store. Africa is changing, and the world is paying attention. This March, Channel Africa invites you to be part of a new conversation. Africa Matters. A platform where experts, policymakers, and thought leaders come together to unpack the big issues of our time. Technology, politics, economics, climate change, and the future of our people. This is where ideas meet action, where change becomes opportunity, where Africa's voice takes its rightful place on the global stage. In March 2026, Channel Africa hosts Africa Climate Change Recovery Summit. Join the dialogue. Be part of the movement. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Get Channel Africa on DSTV Audio Bouquet. Channel 802.
All right, it's 11:50 Central African Time. Lulu Kabu joins us to let us know what's coming up on the Africa Update. Hey, Lulu.
Hello, how are you?
Good.
Good. A lot coming up on Africa Update today. We're going to be focusing on Nigerians in the diaspora. We're going to be speaking to our correspondent, James Liabgon. He'll unpack exactly for us what the Diaspora Commission is calling for in terms of the immediate release of 42 Nigerians allegedly arrested in Mozambique. And then also the Madlanga Commission. There's a lot happening on that front.
The drama.
People
The
don't
legal
want to.
drama.
People don't want to testify.
Nama wouldn't want to testify for school,
But when there's information that is discovered where it hasn't been
no,
brought
the
forth,
process is fine.
It's very
but
tricky.
if you were the one being called,
It's so
would
scary.
you
Like,
go?
is fainting not an option when you're on that stand?
No,
Is
you still have to
fainting
come
not an
back.
option?
But you still have to come back and account. But also,
After you fainted.
people don't realize, people that are going to testify, they don't realize the fact that by the time they get there, the commission's investigators already have the information. They just need
they must bring it
the
to me
individuals.
first.
No, they
must
need
show me.
to. That's
I
why
must
they
know what I'm
start.
talking-
No, that's
No,
why they
but that's
start
what
with the individuals to say,
the Karim guy.
listen.
He's arguing that.
Yes,
You
he's
know,
arguing that he wanted that information, but now it doesn't work that way.
Yeah,
you
tell me what you
them
have
what
about
you
me.
have. No. Tell them what you have and what you're bringing forward and what
Ah,
you've
Mr.
done,
Karim.
and then after that, once they start
Karim
poking
is like,
holes.
tell me, and he's got like the best lawyers that I've ever seen at the commission, and they are defending him.
They are
They're saying,
defending
you know
him,
what?
but to
But
what
he's
end?
not winning.
To what
He's not
end?
winning.
Because at the end of the day, he still has to account. I mean, he's not.
I
the
like this
information
guy.
about the 2.2 million that was paid into another Matlala account,
The sisters
account. Why did he not bring that forward from the onset? So now it's coming back to bite.
I mean, I like these lawyers of his. I wish this guy has money. The fact that he has these lawyers, I've never seen anyone being represented this way.
But you know what
Such
the sad thing is? They're costing him a lot.
They are.
And on top of that, with all the monies he's already paid to Matlala, he's not going to get it back. It's gone.
Yeah.
You see, and what does that do to himself and his family?
But I like the war between the evidence leaders and Mr. Karim's and Mr. Karim's lawyers. Mr. Karim's lawyers, they even tell the chair, don't be upset.
But at the end of the day, who's got the final decision? It's the chair. It's Madlanga. And I was telling somebody this morning that when you think you have the chair and the commission's confidence in how you're responding and what you're saying. There's always
they know how to turn it around.
Baloyi who's sitting there, who's basically thinking, and then when she starts, it becomes a ripple effect. And then there's Commissioner Kumalo.
Yeah.
When he starts, it also becomes an effect. And then the commissioner himself, the chairperson himself. So it's a very interesting one. And
I was
all of
watching
this,
it the other day, and Matthew Chaskelson was starting now to what's his name to correspond with him, say, okay, now you've given us evidence, so it's all good. Now the games are over. I'm coming for you.
Okay, that's what we have on the Africa Update. It sounds like it's going to be quite interesting indeed. Lulu Kapu will be with you from 12 to 1 p.m. Central Africa time. We have to get going, Benjamin, as the On The Move team.
But thank you, Lulu. I'm looking forward to all those wonderful stories. Yeah. Join Lulu Kapu from midday Central African time until 1 o'clock Central African time. That's the Africa Update. We're getting out of here, leaving you with K Lo with one titled 24 Hour.
Have a great day, everyone.
Nothing's better than having you 24 hours. There's nothing better. Nothing's better. There's nothing better. There's nothing better. Nothing's better than seeing you smiling. Nothing's better than having you in my arms. I want you for 24 hours. 24 hours. I want you for 24 hours. 24 hours. Something missing, what do you do? I'm not too clear. Your attitude shows that you don't care. But you tell me all the things where me I want you. You they use me play. Now I got another bed and you wanna come back to me. I beg you make you leave. I don't want story. I don't want story.
It is midday, and this is Africa Update, coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa on Channel Africa from an African perspective. I'm Lulu Gabu. A lot coming up in the next hour. But first, let's go to the news.
ABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Lulu. Good day. The U.S. Embassy in Nigeria has warned American citizens of a possible terrorist threat against U.S. facilities and affiliated schools in the West African country. The embassy has been heightened alert since the U.S. and Israel launched coordinated strikes against Iran. The embassy did not give details on the security threat, but Nigerian authorities have in recent days stepped up security in Abuja following threats of pro-Iranian protests. The Congo Republic President Denis Sassou Nguesso looks set to extend his decades-long rule in elections on Sunday. The 82-year-old former paratrooper first took power in the oil-rich Central African nation in a coup in 1979. He lost Congo Republic's first multi-party elections in 1992, but seized power again in 1997 after a civil war. He has now ruled for a combined total of almost 42 years, making him Africa's third largest serving leader. Sassou will face 6 candidates in an election, with 2 of the main opposition parties boycotting the vote. The United Nations mission in the Democratic Republic of Congo, MONUSCO, says conflict-related sexual violence remains widespread, particularly in the eastern provinces of North and South Kivu. A new report by the UN Joint Human Rights Office has documented hundreds of cases last year, affecting more than 1,500 victims, most of them women and girls. Associate Professor at the Royal Danish Defence College and Extraordinary Associate Professor at Stellenbosch University, Thomas Mandrup.
The focus has, amongst other things, been on trying to prevent sexual violence, and especially sexual violence against children and protecting children and child soldiers and stuff like that. Due to the conflict with the M23 and the government forces, the Vasalendo and other militias, this work has been severely damaged by war, and it's unfortunately
forward. The lawyers asked for a postponement to review some documents that they felt had relevance to the line of questioning. The evidence leader suggested a 45-minute break. However, they dismissed the suggestion. The Commission is investigating allegations of criminal infiltration and political interference in the criminal justice system. Justice Madlanga, in exchange with Karim's legal team.
I take very strong exception to that attitude.
I don't think...
In fact, I find it unprofessional for you to say that I have prejudged issues purely because I'm engaging you. I take strong exception to that.
I don't think